location, Cabo. But EJ Stewart, our producer, is sitting in. She is doing Tony Romo and spending the weekend in Mexico, I believe. I don't know for sure. I'm just seeing some sort of Instagram photos with a tan Maggie Gray walking around. I haven't confirmed her location. But unfortunately for you, you got two nerds who sat and watched the Combine all weekend. I assume you did the same thing I did.
Oh, yeah. No, I came back from dinner, and you think, Saturday night, dinner plans. Yeah. Maybe you go out to my brother was in town. Say, maybe we go paint the town red. Nope. We sat there and watched guys run the 40 for like 2-3 hours. That was how I spent my Saturday night.
Yeah, I told my kids, not today. Quarterbacks are running, kids. Go fend for yourself.
We said quarterbacks running. I wish more did. What was that about?
Well, Sam Hartman had to run 3 laps. But to me, the thing, there was so much news that came out of the scouting combine. The one that stood out to me above all else, of course, Jerry Jones somehow says something that makes news. So Jerry sat down with reporters and basically said in so many words, I'm not so sure we're going to extend Dak Prescott. Now, let's go back a little bit. At the Senior Bowl, Jerry Jones said the Cowboys are going to be all in this offseason. EJ, I don't think he knows what all in means because everything else he says is, well, we got to wait and see. So if they do not extend Dak Prescott, whether you like Dak Prescott or not, if you don't extend him, his cap hit is $59.45 million. That means you can do nothing this offseason if you don't extend him or at least convert him to signing bonus. You got to do something. Otherwise, you are looking at a roster that's going to either be exactly the same or a little bit worse. Yet Jerry is saying, I don't know if we're going to extend Dak. So this means we're not really all in. Yeah. In fact, we're probably going to be worse this year. We've been 12-5 3 years in a row. We're the most consistent team in the NFL. And hey, we're gonna not extend Dak, let him play out his contract, and not sign anyone this offseason. Unfortunately, for Cowboys fans, that's what I see happening.
Look, this was very stupid. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Hearing Jerry Jones say, we can just go into next season with a $59 million cap hit and still be all in, doesn't give me a lot of confidence in terms of changing this roster. But what I will say about the Cowboys as a team is they're still a really good team. Like, if Jerry Jones comes in the next season and says, okay, maybe we can't go out there and make these huge moves we need to make or we wanted to make, we can still make some moves within the margins that can improve this team. Because you said they were 12-5 the last 2 or 3 years. This is not a team that's coming off a 6-win season or a 7-win season. Like, they can come back next year with a similar roster and still be better than most teams in the NFC. And we talk about how the Cowboys may take a step back. Well, look, the Eagles, they may be taking a step back. We'll see what they do defensively. We'll see what happens with the 49ers. Like, these teams that had these great seasons, they also got to make moves too. So I wouldn't be as panicked. I know it wasn't what you wanted to hear as a Dallas Cowboy fan, but you shouldn't be as panicked as perhaps maybe some are hearing Jerry Jones say that we could just keep Dak Prescott at this cap number because they still have a talented roster. They still have one of the top receivers in the game who they will figure out how to re-sign him. They still have Micah Parsons. They're going to have Trey Diggs come back. They're going to have plenty of weapons next season. So I think they'll be fine. This is not what I wanted to hear in terms of if you're looking for a big Cowboys offseason, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's a catastrophe.
Wait, what does be fine mean? Be fine means another season of 12-5. What are we doing here? What are we building towards?
What's wrong with 12-5? I think most people would sign up for that.
No. This is the Dallas Cowboys.
It's all about the playoffs.
All in means we're going to get over that hump from 12-5 and be a Super Bowl team. This is a team that is so weak. They gave 48 points to the Packers.
It was terrible.
The Packers are not the Chiefs, and they just got torched in their first wildcard game. And I like Dak, but you have to admit he needs to take a step in the postseason. The defense got really bad in the postseason, and they lost Dan Quinn, who's now the Commanders' coach. So their defense could get worse. Fine is not good enough. Dallas Cowboys have to figure out how to become a Super Bowl team, and I don't see this happening, especially when Jerry is no real plan on Dak Prescott.
Well, I guess for me, I don't look at it as, okay, they have the all-in, meaning they have to go and, again, revamp the entire roster. Yes, they got smoked in the playoffs, but I don't think that was really a personnel thing. That felt like more of a coaching thing. Like, look, now you brought the same coach back, and I wasn't that excited about that. I thought they should have fired Mike McCarthy, just like Emmitt Smith told us when we were in Super Bowl week. But I didn't watch that game and say, this team doesn't deserve to be on the same field as the Packers. I looked at the team and said that maybe they need to make this game maybe 3 hours later. It looked like they're still sleepwalking. Like they just looked like they weren't ready to play. So that's the thing for me where I say, okay, Jerry said he's going to go all in. I don't think he really knows what he's talking about. I think you're right about that. But I looked at the Dallas Cowboy roster, and I look at a lot of other teams in the NFL. A lot of teams would trade their rosters in a heartbeat for who the Dallas Cowboys have. So, no, I'm not going to sit there and go crazy about this. And I think it's a frustrating because now maybe these big moves you hope the Cowboys will make, they weren't going to make them. But at the end of the day, it's all within. The Cowboys' issues aren't necessarily roster-driven. They're personnel-driven. I think they're personality-driven. I think there's a lack of leadership on the team.
Mm-hmm.
They got to fix that stuff before any of this roster stuff gets figured out. So I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned about this for next season. I think they'll be fine next season, and they'll go into the playoffs, probably have another home playoff game, and then we'll see what happens. It's always going to come down to that.
I feel like Maggie's sitting next to me because we have this argument all the time. This is the most overrated roster in the NFL, and you know why?
How?
Because it's got a star on the helmet, and the second a guy does anything in Dallas, it becomes national news. And there's so much hype on the Dallas guys that we overrate them, and we overrate the entire roster. And we've been doing it for the last 20 years.
But who are these guys that are overrated? I mean, Dak Prescott had an MVP caliber season, and you've sung his praises a bunch.
Actually, I like Dak. Most people can't stand Dak. I think nationally, if we put up a poll, can Dak Prescott ever win a Super Bowl? It'd be 90% no.
I agree with that. But you got Dak Prescott had an MVP caliber season. CeeDee Lamb, what is he?
Okay.
At least the top 3, 4, or 5 receiver?
CeeDee Lamb's very good. Who else you throwing to? Unless you happen to find Jake Ferguson once in a while, that's the problem. There's been no other threat on offense, and they've been such a one-man show offensively. If it doesn't go to CD, it's a huge problem. That cost them against the Niners in the playoff 2 years ago, and it destroyed them against the Packers this year because the Packers eventually figured out there's only one guy that Dak feels comfortable with, CeeDee Lamb. Then, okay, that's just offensively. Yeah. Defense, and they're losing Tyron Smith, their Hall of Fame left tackle.
We learned that over. Can't say healthy, but
yes.
Yeah.
Defensively, I think the Maggie's Bills showed the formula. Just run on this team, and you could destroy them. They cannot stop the run, so they're not built to stop that. They've had some injuries, but I just don't think this roster is nearly as good as other people do.
But there are multiple ways to skin a cat. And do they have to figure out the run defense? Yes. Do they have to get another receiver? Yes. Guess what? They can do that without having to spend $30, $40, $50 million. There is an NFL draft that's happening. We just had a combine where we were just studying all these guys and watching them run in underwear. Not literal underwear like Chris Jones, so we didn't see any weird X-rated 40 times. Like, you're going to be...
That's not all in, though, to go to the draft. That's what every team does. That's not all in.
But I don't marry Jerry to those words in terms of the Dallas Cowboys' success. Like, I didn't look coming this offseason saying that the Cowboys need to quote-unquote go all in order to win. Again, I think they need a personality change. I think they need a culture change. That doesn't mean go and sign some $100 million receiver.
Get Chris Jones on the defensive line to help out with Micah Parsons. Somebody get somebody huge. That's what all in means. When the Rams went all in, they traded for Matthew Stafford. Right. They made a radical move. And to do something like that, to make a radical move, the Cowboys have to sort of kick the can down on all these salary cap situations. Right. They need to extend Dak, push him down the road. They need to sign Parsons and make it a back-heavy deal. So to go all in, it's an uncomfortable situation, but you would have to extend these guys or pay these guys and create a lot of salary cap space. And the truth is they're not going to do that. And that means that I don't think smart people are going to pick the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl next year. And if not next year, then when? When are we doing this?
Well, look,
when is this future Super Bowl trip?
Well, look, if you fade the Cowboys every year for the last however many years, you're doing quite well in Vegas. So I get not wanting to pick them next year. But I think that's a fool's errand to think because they don't sign some big guy that therefore you shouldn't pick them as Super Bowl contender. Again, if you want to talk about they don't have the leadership, they don't have the football character, that's a whole nother thing. But I disagree when we talk about this roster being overrated. Again, they got one of the best 4 or 5 defensive players in all of the league. They got one of the best receivers in all of the league. They got a quarterback who can throw for 4,500 yards. They got to figure out now the running back situation. But again, running backs are a dime a dozen. I think that's another guy they can probably plug in the draft. They're not so far away. That's the thing. Like, I'm looking at these teams in the NFC because at the end of the day, we can't even talk about winning a Super Bowl. We got to talk about getting to the NFC Championship game, even being in contention. And I'm looking at these teams that are around them. The 49ers, by far in a way, look like they have the most talent. Do I look at the Lions roster and say, the Lions No way.
You should.
The Lions defense?
The Lions defense is just building now. It's going to be way better.
The Lions have no corners.
They'll get them.
They have no corners.
They're after Snead from the Chiefs. They're going to be in.
We got to see if they can land them. I mean, Miami apparently wants to do it. Anytime Miami is in a trade negotiation with a certain other team, usually they win those out because players want to play in Miami.
Forget the Lions for a second, though. Okay. Here, the problems are in Dallas, and the problems start with Jerry Jones. Let's hear what Jerry had to say about the Dak Prescott extension.
We don't need to, but we can. If everybody wants to solve it, you can. And so the how is you get in and get on the same page and see if you can come to an agreement. If you can't, what we have in place works. And so obviously, if you do it one way, then that gives you, you'll be working through some of the other areas on the team in a different way. But you can't really plan on that until you see where you are there. That's what we're doing.
Is there fear that this could be his last year? Do you have that fear at all?
I don't fear that.
Yeah, to me, I heard we have no plan. That's in so many ways. And Jerry, I've been a Jerry Jones translator before. Basically, he's like, he's going to wait and see what's going on here. What happened to All In?
Well, look, him saying that, we can solve this if they want to. There's nothing for Dak Prescott to solve. He's the player in this. He's the guy that's a quarterback. That's one of the premier quarterbacks. So if he goes in next season as a free agent, guess what? He's going to go get a boatload of money from somewhere else. So Jerry's delusional, 100%. Like this idea that Dak Prescott should have any kind of urgency, I guess, is always the risk of injury. Maybe that's the only place where I can see Dak having no lack of leverage. But he has all the leverage in this situation. Jerry was the guy over the course of the season kept saying, Dak is so great. He's so amazing. He should be an MVP. He's playing like a top 5 quarterback. You can't now come into the offseason where you're the guy that has to get under a cap number. You're the guy that has to find a way to spread out a $59 million cap hit and say, well, we can just do it or not do it. It's in his court, or if he wants to solve it, he can solve. He has something to solve. He's getting $59 million worth of cap hit. It doesn't matter to him if they solve it or not.
We've seen this movie before. They've held off on signing Dak to a long-term deal and end up costing them. To me, I see no change. I feel like Dallas is going to, I think they're falling off 12-5 a little bit. They might be a playoff team, but 12-5 is not going to be easy. It's pretty crazy that they've been the same record 3 years in a row. And Jerry also said he loves Mike McCarthy, which I think is a very controversial statement as well. But if you guys have any ideas for solving the Cowboys' problems, give us a call, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We're going to talk to a Cowboys insider, RJ Ochoa, who sees a very bleak offseason possibly in the future for Dallas. EJ is sitting in for Maggie. Maggie sent me a text this morning, said, promise you won't argue about the Knicks versus the Sixers, because, and I quote, nobody cares.
Thanks, Maggie.
Accurate statement by Maggie. So we'll try to keep out of it. We won't even mention that Jalen Brunson might be out for a long time. No big deal.
I'll say, keep Jalen Brunson out your mouth, Perloff.
But we understand.
We're praying for him.
All right. That's why I want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys, so we do not have to talk about the New York Knicks. Okay, we'll be right back with RJ Ochoa right here on the Maggie and Perloff Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Stewart sitting in for Maggie today, who is, I somewhere at Cancun, one of those fancy places. All I know is a margarita was involved.
Margarita Mags is back.
Yeah, Margarita Mags, who apparently, if somebody is speaking in a upstate New York accent on a beach somewhere in Mexico, that is Maggie Gray. She'll be back tomorrow. But meanwhile, we are having a heated Cowboys argument. EJ, we got to come up with a poll. The question might be, can Dak Prescott ever win a Super Bowl, or can the Dallas Cowboys ever win under Jerry Jones? I think both are valid questions.
We should have brought a tarot card reader back to see to get an answer for the Cowboys fans out there.
Well, yeah. The tarot card reader last week who doomed Maggie's Bills. Let's get a local temperature. During Super Bowl week, I went on this podcast, Blogging the Boys, with RJ Ochoa, who was kind enough to ignore the fact that he knows I'm an Eagles fan. So I have to return the favor. Managing editor of Blogging the Boys, RJ Ochoa, will join us. And RJ, what do you make of Jerry Jones saying that he does not have to extend Dak Prescott this offseason, when I think everybody expected that to happen?
Well, good morning. Great to be with you. And I think some of it sort of feels like negotiating through the public, which is something the Dallas Cowboys are not afraid of doing, something they're kind of known for around this time of year. But I will say this is starting to feel a little bit more serious than I ever anticipated. The moment the season ended, this just felt like an inevitability given the facts of it all. I know that you're well aware of them. But now it does feel like the Cowboys might be willing to kind of, in Jerry Jones's warped, misinterpreted way, go all in on everybody being on a one-year deal in 2024, maybe being a swan song of sorts as opposed to a last dance. It's a weird vibe right now with legal tampering a week away. And this is the Cowboys really, really flying close to the sun, because Dak Prescott is a quarterback who we've seen before is not afraid to bet on himself.
RJ, Jerry yesterday or a couple of days ago made it sound as if, hey, we can do the things we want to do, regardless of whether or not we sign Dak to an extension, which seems crazy to everyone else who kind of knows math and knows the salary cap. But I guess, can you lay out for Cowboys fans and lay out for NFL fans, what does an offseason look like for the Cowboys in terms of guys they can bring in if they decide to keep Dak Prescott on a $59 million cap hit? Is there a chance that there's no one they could bring in? What does that look like?
I'd be stunned if they left his contract alone.
Okay.
If they don't extend him, they do have the option to restructure him and still alleviate around $18 million in salary cap space. Now, that would, give him a $55 million cap hit next year, even if he signs in free agency with somebody else. But that would allow for them to go, all in, so goes the party line, at least that Jerry Jones authored, and accused everybody else of misinterpreting. And so the Cowboys are generally wallflowers when it comes to free agency. So I don't know that they're hankering for $18 million in salary cap space, but they can also create cap space by extending CeeDee Lamb. He's entering the final year of his rookie contract. And so there aren't a lot of pressing free agents on the Cowboys roster, especially in the aftermath of the Tyron Smith news. This is kind of par for the course for them. They like to keep their own guys who they really covet, unless they're Dak Prescott, I guess, and maybe get a bargain or two and kind of pair that with a hopefully solid draft class in an overall sense.
We're talking to RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys. So what happened to All In? I'm hearing more business as usual, RJ, and I think it's a lot of people. I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I think a lot of people want to see something radically different because what they're doing right now seems to have a ceiling.
Yeah, so it was now about 32 days ago at the Senior Bowl when, out of nowhere, of his own conscious, seemingly volition, Jerry Jones said, we're going to go all in this offseason. And that was the line that everybody kind of stuck to. But he added, I think the context is important. He said, it's going to be different than in years past. It's going to be with different players. You're going to see us do different things. And that, honestly, at the time felt like such an empty promise. It was about 2 weeks removed from the playoff loss to Green Bay, and it just kind of felt like a used car salesman doing everything they could to convince you to walk away with this vehicle. And so Jerry's comments, and Steven was the first person to sort of walk that back last week at the NFL Combine, but that Jerry did really just kind of, I think, confirmed everybody's worst belief, that this was the Cowboys just trying to rope you along and keep people invested in a time where I know that it's kind of a running joke that Cowboys fans feel like every offseason their team can win the Super Bowl, but my own personal read on the fan base is they're pissed. I mean, in a way that they haven't been in a very long time. Now, whether that holds, by the time we get to August and whether or not people refuse to drink the Kool-Aid remains to be seen. But I do give the Cowboys front office credit for being able to sense that on a usual basis. And so it felt like they threw everybody a bone, and the time to kind of, cash that check is showing up, and they want to prepare everybody for the reality that they're probably not going to.
RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys joins us here on Maggie and Perloff. Now, Jerry Jones hasn't been the only one talking. There's been a lot of talking from Micah Parsons. There's been talking from CeeDee Lamb. There's been family members that have been talking a lot about what happened and what went wrong with the Cowboys. Starting on Micah Parsons because he does a lot of talking, and he runs the podcast mics to kind of air out the grievances of the team. And I've made the suggestion that, I don't know if you could see a guy running to podcast mics and say that guy is a leader of the team. And I kind of wonder if him making comments about the team and the character and that they got to change the culture, that kind of goes one ear out the other because of the nature in which Micah Parsons likes to talk and the volume. Do you think that his teammates look at him as a leader?
Well, as somebody whose job it is to create content around his team, I'm extraordinarily grateful to Micah.
I'm sure you are.
Podcast. But I will say, I mean, just from my vantage point, it does get a little old. It does get a little tiring. And some of that just kind of is what comes with the dinner, right? When you're winning and winning and winning, it's, oh man, this is so cool. We're getting a peek behind the scenes. We're getting to see what goes on, et cetera, et cetera. And when you're losing, nobody cares. Everybody is calling it a distraction. Obviously, Micah continued his podcast at the Super Bowl, and the fact that he was at whatever set it was. I mean, it just the fact that he interviewed Jordan Love and was asking him how he destroyed their team. There are some elements to what he does that I would qualify as a bad look. I don't know that any of his teammates feel that way, but the Cowboys culture has come under fire, as you can, imagine, what with the way things went. Steven was asked about that. Jerry was asked about that. And it doesn't help that you have family members, and we all have family, and everybody's had a family member say something that they probably wish they hadn't. And so it's just, for the first time ever, really, in my life, it's felt like the shadow that this franchise plays under is getting to people. It has always felt like something that is its own separate thing. And I give them a lot of credit for trying, obviously, to exonerate the sins of the past, many of which that they're not responsible for. I actually thought it was great that McCarthy, said that in his postseason press conference. But they're fighting a lot of ghosts and they're fighting a lot of skeletons in the closet. And I think you can kind of see that pressure sort of mount on them and come out in certain ways. And sometimes it happens in a public forum by way of a podcast.
RJ, can Dak Prescott win a Super Bowl?
I've carried a lot of water here, and I'm really used to these debates, and I certainly think so. I think he is extraordinarily talented. I think that he obviously has been an incredible return on investment from a 4th-round draft pick status. And I think last year he played at an MVP level. I think if you could, Lamar Jackson won the MVP and deserved it, but you can look at their 2 seasons relative to one another. And it kind of just came down to the fact that Dak Prescott lost on Christmas Eve and Lamar Jackson won on Christmas night. And the narrative was born then, and it was kind of irrecoverable from Dak's vantage point. But Dak has really improved, and I think he's really become a different kind of quarterback and a different kind of passer with a lot more authority than we saw early on in his career. And, age is working against him now. He's north of 30, and that conversation obviously is its own separate thing. But I certainly believe he's talented enough. Now, that's not to say he's not responsible for anything. I think that's where Cowboys fans who are so defensive of Dak maybe, ignore those kinds of things, and it becomes an all or nothing proposition. But Dak was horrible. He was terrible, and he's been horrible and terrible in playoff games and big moments, and he hasn't done anything, I think, to defend the idea that he shines against inferior opponents. But all advanced data, all advanced metrics support the idea that he's one of the very best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think it's a pick your flavor sort of thing, but I absolutely think he's capable of taking this team where they haven't been in a very long time, unless the usual Cowboys thing happens, which is often the case.
Yeah, horrible and terrible is a bad combination, by the way. That's not what you want in your
Not going to win many playoff games playing like that, I assume. RJ, I have one more question for you here, and it goes on Dak Prescott, because I mentioned before a lot of talking from Micah, a lot of talking from CD Lamb about things he could have handled differently during the playoff loss. Very little from Dak Prescott. We have a new haircut, but besides that, we've heard very little from Dak Prescott. Do you think that this is a smart strategy for him to not say much and kind of go into the shadows this offseason with all of this noise between Jerry and All In and Micah? Who knows what he's going to say next week and what family members are going to come out? Do you think Dak's leadership approach this offseason has been smart with him kind of staying low?
I will say it's definitely interesting, and I'm interested that you also noticed it, because it's something that I've definitely noticed. I know y'all were out at the Super Bowl. Dak was not. I mean, and that is different. Obviously the Cowboys haven't ever been in the Super Bowl throughout his career, but he is always there, pushing Sleep Number, Old Spice, whatever, alongside his teammates. And so the fact that he wasn't there was definitely really interesting. And you could certainly accuse him of hiding and ducking. I think the fact that, he wasn't even there to present the Walter Payton Man of the Year award to Cam Hayward was also interesting, because that is a pretty impressive honor, obviously. And so the fact that he wasn't there at any point is interesting. You mentioned family member. It is worth mentioning that Dak is about to become a father for the first time. And so, you could certainly understand if all of his attention and energy is focused there. And so it's hard to kind of have a hard take on that, given that specific factor, then it's different, relative to how it's ever been. Family is, like, for all of us, extraordinarily important to Dak. But I think the most important takeaway is that it has been noticed, that everyone has spoken, but that Dak has been really quiet, especially in the lead up to his contract extension discussion. I will say that the Super Bowl in Miami, right before COVID obviously hit, Dak had said then, as he was entering his first serious negotiation for an extension, that he was prepared to not show up to OTAs and mini camps. Now, we obviously never got to see that happen because of COVID and everything that kind of came with that. But my point is, he used the Super Bowl as a platform to offer what he was willing to do from a negotiation standpoint. So the fact that he declined to do so now, he's made enough money. I think the facts are, and the leverage all lays with him. But it is an interesting set of circumstances with about a week to go.
Okay, RJ, I know you got to go do radio in San Antonio, and I think I mentioned you at the Super Bowl. I'm about to lose a bet involving Victor Wembanyama.
You've lost it.
Yeah, I know. I'm well aware of this. So if Victor Wembanyama wins Rookie of the Year, I have to drive to San Antonio. So I will be hitting you up for breakfast taco recommendations. Do you think driving from New York to San Antonio just to get breakfast tacos is a good idea? I think it still is.
I don't know if you're aware of this, Andrew, but there's a big breakfast taco debate between our city, San Antonio, and Austin. And so
That I know.
I will use this as a trump card. Say, look, I know someone who drove all the way from New York to San Antonio to get our breakfast tacos. Who's ever done that in Austin? Like, who would ever care to do that for Austin? So I would say it's not worth it for most areas, most necks of the woods. But when it comes to San Antonio breakfast tacos, there are none better. So it is definitely worth it. But also, if you don't leave with any kind of Wemby paraphernalia, you've really done yourself a disservice.
Do you think I could convince Wemby to go to breakfast tacos? Is he accessible? I feel like he'd be fun to eat breakfast tacos with.
That was among the first things he talked about when he first landed in San Antonio was that they were great and they were interesting. And so I think he's open to that. He seems he's an incredibly wise person, especially for his age. And I think he has some culinary ambitions that you could help, walk him through. And I think it would be an incredible experience for the two of you to share together, especially for you to explain the genesis of it all for.
Well, look, Wemby is quite thin, as great as he is. Yeah. So he could probably use some breakfast tacos, some breakfast burritos, whatever y'all can give him.
This is a win all the way around. I'm liking the idea of this.
All right, well, I'll have a table for 3. You can join us, RJ. Appreciate the time. Enjoy what should be a very, very interesting Dallas Cowboys offseason.
Thanks, guys. You have a great week.
Well, you heard it there, EJ. Breakfast tacos, San Antonio versus Austin. I'll probably go to both places on this amazing road trip that a certain person who just walked in the room still not invited.
Which is so nasty of you. Like, so
EJ,
unfair.
don't you want to go now? It's starting to sound really fun, right?
Well, look, I mean, I'm someone who has visited Austin, loves Austin, and went there in part because of the breakfast tacos and breakfast burritos.
Yeah.
So RJ suggesting that their breakfast tacos are better than Austin's breakfast tacos does have me intrigued.
Yeah,
Very
well,
intrigued, I'll be honest.
Just putting a little play in, the Red River rivalry, that's hard to say, in Dallas is early October.
Okay.
So we could go there. We could go to Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, do the 3, and maybe a stop in Houston. There's just amazing food and fun and good times and friends
the old
everywhere.
Texas Triangle like they used to do back in the NBA.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's only really room for a limited room in the car. Anyway, let's go to headlines with Andrew Bogusch.
Oh, hey guys, good morning. Hey Pete, headlines are sponsored by Progressive Insurance.
Disrespectful, Perloff.
Looking for a career path with flexibility and great pay and benefits? I am. Go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today. Thanks for the advice. Carmelo Anthony cannot expect many people to put him number 1 on their list of NBA GOATs, but he probably should expect to be a little higher on his son's list. Here's Kai on naming his best players in the NBA.
Paul George, the best player. Kobe.
When are you going to say
Carmelo
your
Anthony.
The fact that you didn't say your dad first is crazy.
I don't think Lala actually threw a plate at her son, but he probably deserved it. Here's Dad's response on his podcast with Miro and Draymond.
With the fact that he puts me to the side and he don't put me in that category. But out of here, because you keep trying me. We about to be 17. You talking about going to college. I want to see where you at.
So you got ones coming soon.
Ones and 1,000%.
You gonna win?
Am I gonna win? I never lost an NBA 101.
Turn to the ball real quick. Never lost.
Never NBA 101.
So this is your Jake Shuttlesworth moment.
This is, but I ain't gonna Jake Shuttlesworth him. I ain't gonna kick the ball over. I ain't gonna kick the ball. I ain't gonna do that. I ain't gonna have mama talking about Jesus. I ain't gonna have that. You know what I'm saying?
Poor Kyan.
Sounds like a great podcast.
You gonna download that one, Pete?
No chance.
No chance, Pete? You don't love the Jesus Shuttlesworth reference there?
Don't need the soundtrack underneath it either.
Mashing plates.
I will say this. Now, look, Melo is not the GOAT. So I could understand Cayenne not putting Carmelo Anthony among, when you ask him who the greatest player of all time is, not putting his dad. It's the Paul George part that I think his dad can't get over. I think a lot of other fans can't get over. Because you want to say, he said, second person he says is Kobe, which is like, okay, a lot of young kids think Kobe is a GOAT. Like, that's par for the course. It's understandable. But the first word he said, well, Paul George is obviously the best. And then, like, you're like, wait, what?
Paul George has some big fans of young NBA players. I've heard that many, many times. It's bizarre.
Well, I don't know.
Is it the shoe?
No, I think he's the modern day T-Mac. Like, I think the way he plays, his body style, like, they're similar height, similar weight, similar games. Like, I think if you really liked T-Mac growing up, you would love Paul George. And I think, T-Mac is one of the more exciting players in the NBA. And I think a lot of these kids do really look up to Paul George in that way as well. Now, Paul George I don't know if he has the highlights that T-Max had, but they're similar players. So I think that's where this weird Paul George love resides. I understand it. He's an awesome player, but it is very weird.
And there was a time, like pre-broken leg, where he would always end up like third on the best player list in the game. Like he had a lot of industry respect, but it's weird that like teenagers think he's so good because he's not the flashiest of players.
No.
I mean, unless it's like on social media, whatever, like that flows into this. But it is strange that he gets gets so much love on these in this conversation.
I feel like all young people make weird choices when it comes to top NBA players. Last week we had a headline where C.J. Stroud, the Texans quarterback, had a top 5 list, and he didn't have Michael Jordan or LeBron on the list. I mean, you got to put one of those guys on the list. I think KD was one. Was KD one on that list?
KD, well, it was Steph, I think. KD was on the list, and Dirk was on the list.
Dirk. So
he's aware of the past. If he's got Dirk on there.
Yeah, Shaq on there. Yeah, it was like he had guys from the past. It just was not the guys you would expect.
Do we need a national law saying you have to be at least 25 to do a top 5 NBA list? Because these are not making any sense.
We all know Jalen Brunson is number 1. The Knicks winning in Cleveland 107-98 after losing their star guard in the first minute to a bruised left knee.
X-rays are negative, so that's where it is.
Thanks, Coach. Brunson airlifted.
Sing a Hail Mary for Brunson.
Yeah, airlifted off the court after banging knees with a defender. Dante DiVincenzo scored 28. Josh Hart put up 13 points, 19 boards, and 10 assists. Joe Burrow said yesterday he thinks he'll be fully cleared to return from wrist surgery by mid-May. He is hoping to throw without limitations at Bengal OTAs. In case you're not a Perloff daughter, Michael Penix Jr. has a 10.5-inch hand. All his medical checks at the Combine reportedly came back great after 4 season-ending injuries at Indiana. Penix did, of course, avoid major injury at Washington.
That's a big hand.
Yeah. What does that mean unless you're a Perloff daughter?
Oh, because you were making them watch all weekend.
Yep.
So maybe if you weren't in your house, people might not have watched and therefore didn't know how big Michael Penix's hands were.
I understand.
J.J. McCarthy throws a 62-mile-an-hour fastball / football.
No, my daughters are more into breaking down the line play. They want to see.
They're big on knee bends.
Sunday was our big day. Offensive lineman, that guy with the. Did you guys see that guy who looked like Dusty Rhodes who ran a 4.8?
Don't they all like Dusty Rhodes? Aren't they all built like that? Once you're an
he had a big frizzy blonde thing going on.
I know you're talking about.
That was great. No, we had a great time. Just a lot of combine, a lot of Knicks basketball. It was a wonderful weekend.
I'd like to ask them if they had a great time. Are either one of them available this morning for comments?
But that's what parents do. Parents always do that. They always do that. We had a great time, and the kids are like, I don't know. I would say a great time.
Actually, something did really happen.
It's more you had a great time. We don't know about them.
We were actually watching live and we'll get to this story in a little bit, where Xavier Worthy set the all-time Combine 40 record. And my wife somehow thought we were watching the Olympics, and she's like, is he going to win the gold medal? I'm not kidding.
I think that's a fair question.
She's like, she's like, we just witnessed history. I'm like, yeah, kind of, not really. No, this is not history.
We'll talk about Xavier in a second, but I saw someone post before Xavier actually ran. They posted like some track guy running the 40.
Oh, yeah.
He ran like a 4.12, I think, and being like, this... Like
Chris Coleman.
Yeah, regardless of whatever you think of these fast receivers and DBs, they're all getting smoked by an Olympic sprinter. And it kind of took a little bit of the joy out of this combine for me when that happened.
Right, but we also know if that Olympic sprinter came to the NFL, he would probably get smoked as well.
Yeah, he would get crushed. The first time he goes over the middle and gets hit by Roquan Smith, he'd be tapping out in a second.
Some guys at work, remember old school? I know Pete knows, like Skeets Nehemiah. Everyone remember that name? San Francisco 49ers.
I have his jersey.
You do?
No.
That would have been a great story if you did. We would have heard a story about Pete. So I was a Niners fan before I became a Vikings fan.
I tried to order it on Fanatics, and the letters was too small.
What is? You know what? It's Monday morning. Maggie's not here. I think Pete's going to be dangerous today. Anyone else get that vibe?
Oh, for what?
He's always dangerous.
Yeah, Pete is always dangerous, first of all. Yeah, it's like...
Just state my opinion, that's all.
Yeah. You're the only one that's scared, Perloff. I'm fine here.
Yeah, I mean, usually.
Well, I'm used to being back.
You've been affected by him. You guys have become the old men and the Muppets with these
just state my
grumpy opinions.
Stupid opinions.
You say affected by him like I've been like infected by like the alien symbiote, like
I don't know.
Spider-Man. Like I think I'm okay. I think I don't think we're saying, we and us.
No, you're immune to him, though. You're numb to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just worry about the negativity. I don't want it creeping in. I want everyone here to stay positive.
I'm perfectly fine. You're the one that's bringing up negativity.
How am I bringing up negativity?
Just did. You said I'm worried about the negativity coming in for me.
First time you opened your mic, you just tore apart the Carmelo Anthony podcast.
It was terrible. Sorry, it was.
That's what I call negativity.
Okay, all right. It was great. It was awesome. I wish I listened to it every day.
Back to me. Great,
yes.
thanks. U.S. women's
Take it
soccer
away.
beat Colombia 3-0 in L.A. last night to reach the Gold Cup semifinals. They'll face Canada on a Wednesday night. Women's number 1, South Carolina, completing its second consecutive perfect regular season, 76-68 over Tennessee. And on ice, the Oilers extend their win streak to 4 with a 6-1 rout of the Penguins. Connor McDavid, a goal and an assist. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Andrew. We're going to try and keep everything positive today without Maggie here. Maggie's usually sort of the positive force of the show, I believe, in my opinion, unless it's about the Buffalo Bills. But today, me and EJ are holding down the fort. Coming up, we're going to talk about, in what, in my opinion, is the most overrated combine performance I can remember. That's next, right here on Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. So EJ Stewart sitting in for Maggie. We both spent way too much time watching the Combine this weekend because we all know smart teams look at the tape and do not get wowed by testing numbers. But there was a real wow moment this weekend. Xavier Worthy, Texas wide receiver, first run goes 4.25. I think it was 4.25. And everyone says, take off your shoes. That is super low. It's one of the top 10 lowest Combine 40s of all time. But he says, no, I want to set the all-time record, which was set in 2017 by John Ross. Runs again. They measured in real time at 4.2, which ties John Ross. And then about 10 minutes later, Rich Eisen says the official measurements come in. It's 4.1. He set the all-time record. If I was a conspiracy theorist, I would think maybe that's, I don't know, a little massage.
Okay.
A lot of fast times. But I hope the teams do not see this record 40 and say, I'm moving up Xavier Worthy a half a round because of this. Because we know testing speed and NFL speed are not the same thing. He broke John Ross's record, who was the number 9 pick in 2017, to, at the time, my Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a huge Andy Dalton fan, bizarrely.
I know.
And they
Still
drafted
trying to figure out
John.
why, but okay.
Just because I knew him for a long time. Nice guy. John Ross comes in and was supposed to be the savior. Great tape at Washington. Could not stay healthy. Was totally ineffective.
Yeah.
He scares me. If you look at Xavier Worthy and see this 40 and say he's going to do it on the field. Now, his production in Texas was inconsistent. He had star expectations that sometimes he hit, sometimes he did not. I read yesterday or heard that he could go from mid-second round to the end of the first round.
Yeah.
If teams are going to do that, it better be on the tape. I don't want it to be because of the 40.
No, I love Xavier Worthy, and I would push back that he didn't live up to the hype at Texas. I mean, his last season, just this past season, he caught for over 1,000 yards. This is a guy whose freshman year caught for, I think, 700, 800 yards. So, like, he's been a playmaker or a game-breaking type of player pretty much since he stepped foot in Austin. He didn't have maybe the big explosive plays that we're used to. I think his yards per catch went down every year, but that could be defensive scheming. And honestly, we could talk about the personnel of Texas. We know Sark is a master game planner, so I don't know if I'd put it on Sark, but maybe his quarterback, dare I say, didn't give him the kind of...
He's got a first-round quarterback, Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers, I don't know.
People are into him.
I know people are into him, but how do you have A.D. Mitchell, who also ran a blazing time, and Xavier Worthy, and you couldn't get more out of them? Now, look, they won a bunch of games. They were in the college football playoffs. I don't want to sound like they were some scrub team last year, but I don't put so much of concern that, hey, maybe Worthy isn't this kind of player on the field. Because when I watch Xavier Worthy, if there's anything that kid can do, he can run. Like, we can talk about whether or not he's going to catch the ball and the ball gets to him. We can talk about whether or not he can, beat press coverage. But everybody knows he can fly. And he's one of the best deep threats in college football. He was last year. He beat Alabama deep in that game. A bunch of guys got beat in that game. But Xavier Worthy had one of the big catches in that game. I love him. I like guys who gave me years of production. When I compare him to John Ross, the guy that previously had this record, John Ross, you're looking at 1 year of production. You're looking at only that senior year where he caught for 1,000 yards, and it was a great season, but it was 1 year. I've seen Xavier Worthy as a freshman step on the field against Oklahoma and put up big numbers. I've seen him in his sophomore year put up big numbers. So this is not a guy where we're saying, okay, we saw him have one good year and then he ran this great 40 time. That's it. Xavier Worthy was a stud prospect coming out of high school, and he was a very highly touted player at Texas. So him running the number, I'll admit, was a little surprising to me just because I would never have thought he's the fastest guy in combine history. But then that goes a little bit to what you were saying, that I think these players have perfected how to run the 40. Just like a lot of these guys throw the football a lot better than they used to. A lot of guys know how to weight train better than they used to. I think that times are different. So do I think Xavier Worthy is, the fastest guy ever to step in the NFL? I don't know about that, but I do think that he's a guy with game-breaking speed, and that if you're an NFL team, you absolutely should be targeting him.
So his first year when he had 15.8 yards per catch, when he was really explosive, he had Casey Thompson and Hudson Card as his quarterbacks. Those were not good quarterbacks.
Right, exactly.
Casey Thompson really was not a good quarterback. So you're telling me his quarterback play obviously got better and his performance went down. I mean, he had to share the ball more.
Right, he had more receivers. He had more catches this year. I know they had one more game or a couple more games than he played his freshman year.
Yeah, I just feel like the hype around him is going to be too much because of this 40. And honestly, the guy who's more impressive to me is A.D. Mitchell, the other Texas receiver, was ridiculous.
Well, A.D. Mitchell, his size and weight that combined with running a 4.3. I mean,
and also the big games for him, like he really showed up.
He
when
had big games at Georgia too. You saw my guy that did it at multiple spots.
One big game at Georgia specifically.
Yeah,
but I honestly, I'm taking A.D. Mitchell. I heard Daniel Jeremiah, the NFL Network analyst, say that he's going to sneak into a lot of the end of the first round. That I understand. That is all there for me. If Worthy goes in the first round, I think it'll be because of this 40, and I think teams will live to regret that. It reminds me of Hollywood Brown a little bit. That's not my type of guy.
Brown's a good player. Like I think that's the thing too. Like I mean, like Hollywood Brown, we kind of look at him as a punchline. This is a guy that has multiple 1,000-yard receiving yards in his career. Like, and I think NFL receivers are built a lot different now. Like there was a time where I may look at a guy like Worthy and say, is he a little bit more of a gadget guy? He's a little small. He's only 160 pounds, which is kind of crazy. But look, we're seeing a lot of these guys succeed in the NFL. Like I watched Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers looks like he should be, maybe needs to be carded at every restaurant, but he looks like a high schooler.
How about Devontae Smith?
Another guy who's really thin, really small. But those guys the NFL is so less physical than it used to be. You can do so less to the receiver in terms of like how you can jam them or how much the referees will allow you to hold and grab. These guys run a lot more free than they used to. So, to me, give me the speed. I'll figure out everything else later.
I don't know. I'm looking at last year's top receivers. Tyreek Hill, of course, is unique, but he's super thick. He's built a lot differently. Okay. CeeDee Lamb's tall. Amon-Ra St. Brown's super thick, too, and not really that fast. Puka Nacua, thick. A.J. Brown, gigantic. DJ Moore, kind of small. How about Nico Collins? He's gigantic. Mike Evans. All these guys, I still think there's a lot of room for a 6'4" guy.
But you're not drafting Worthy, I think, to be your number one. You're drafting him as an ultimate gadget guy. Like, to me, like, I look at Worthy as a guy and say, okay, if I have a number one, if I'm, dare I say, the Dallas Cowboys, and I have a guy in CeeDee Lamb, and I need someone that can relieve pressure on my number one receiver, a guy that can take the top off the defense and maybe give some things open up underneath, or I can take some bombs and take some shots down the field. That's where he's a fit. He's got to be more of a luxury piece. But if he gets to the right place, that dude is scary. Because this is a guy who's played in big games since his career started. He's not afraid of the spotlight. And that was a big moment. Like, to go into that combine and you run that first time, a lot of guys would have shut it down. The fact that he said, you know what, I want to go out there because I can break that record. And he went out and did it. That actually told me a lot, because a lot of guys wouldn't have done anything.
Yeah, we'll see when he's a Las Vegas Raider, of course. Got the
he's on Antonio Pierce. He's on the fist pump, right?
Coming up, could be a record-breaking class of quarterbacks. EJ and I completely disagree on the upcoming draft. That's next. Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He thinks Frisbee golf is the sport of the future. She's sticking with football. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Welcome to Maggie and Perloff. Maggie is out today, undisclosed location involving some drink with an umbrella. She was given some kind of, weird excuse, EJ. EJ Stewart sitting in for Maggie today. weird excuse. Oh, I have something to do here and there. Meanwhile, I heard like somebody say, "Oh, another pina colada, Miss Gray," in the background. So kind of weak, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. And then it was very weird when she was like, "Oh, but guys, no, trust me, I can get on the production call too." I'm like, "Yeah, okay. I don't think you'll be. I don't know if this would be the right time to bring you on a production call if you're, getting throwing down margaritas to talk about the show. I think we'll be good. We'll handle it."
She did send me one kind of semi-angry note about the idea that we'll get to later that Baker Mayfield's going to be a New England Patriot, which is totally on brand for her. But meanwhile, me and you were sitting watching the dumb combine, especially on Saturday when the quarterbacks threw. And I was watching it, and maybe I'm naive. I got excited. I think we have a chance to have a record-breaking first round. The most quarterbacks ever to go in the first round, 1983, 6 quarterbacks went. The most famous quarterback class of all time, led by John Elway, of course, Dan Marino, Jim Kelly. There is a strong possibility to me that 6 go in this year's first round. Now, others have set the over-under around 4.5. I see a lot of teams need quarterbacks and a lot of talented quarterbacks and a very thin class next year. So if you want one, you want to jump on it now. Starting with Caleb Williams, who I think had a really good week at the Combine, even though he didn't do anything. He kind of wowed everybody with his personality. So he's going to Chicago. Right. That's done at number 1. Washington, number 2, needs a quarterback. New England, number 3, needs a quarterback. Looks like Washington will go either Jaden Daniels or Drake May. New England, whoever's left over. The Giants at number 6. A lot of smoke that they're looking quarterback. Atlanta at number 8 might go Kirk Cousins now, but they could also get a quarterback. Denver is the Vegas favorite to draft Bo Nix, who is a 4th quarterback. Then we're getting these reports that J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback, who barely had to throw at Michigan, could go in the top 10. So right there, that's 5 names off the top of my head, and that doesn't even include the most productive passer, well, sort of tied for most productive passer, Michael Penix. Yeah. Jaden Daniels also very productive this year, the Heisman Trophy winner. Michael Penix looked amazing in throwing drills Saturday, has gigantic hands, as we know, and we saw him do it on the field. He had some really great games, struggled a little bit in the title game, but had great games against Oregon and did it all the way. He even did it in Indiana before he transferred to Washington. Had health concerns, and everyone had dropped him because of that, but got a great medical in Indy, so he looks good there. I watched, just watching football, throwing tight spirals down the field every single game. I do not understand why Michael Penix would not be a first-round pick. So that's 6 right there. EJ, why am I wrong? Why can't we have 6 quarterbacks in this year's draft class?
Just like you think that I'm overrating Xavier Worthy's 40 time, I think you're overrating the talk and the love about all these quarterbacks. Because we're in the combine season, because no quarterbacks have moved, there have been no trades, there have been no signings. All we have is these guys performing, and the guys that we're talking about, guys talking to the media, answering questions. So we're thinking, oh, well, everybody needs a quarterback. We're just going to grab Bo Nix and grab J.J. McCarthy and grab this guy and grab that guy.
Yeah.
Everybody's going first round. You all get first round picks. It's like it's Oprah.
Let's go.
No, that's not how this works. There are going to be teams that are going to look at their situation and say, you know what, could we draft a quarterback in the first round? Yes, but we have other needs, and we have guys in free agency or guys in the trade market that we can actually pluck from there, and then we'll get our quarterback later in this draft. I don't think that you're going to see this swath of quarterbacks go in the first round. Now, could you see, I think you said that 4.5 number was the number a lot of people are looking at. I would probably set it at, I see maybe 4 at the most. I think you'll definitely get 3. I think you'll have the top 2 guys, or top 3 guys, May, I combined all their names, May, Williams, and Jaden Daniels. Those guys definitely.
So 3 set.
I think after that, you probably will get 1 of McCarthy, Penix, and Nix. I don't think you get 2, and I definitely don't think you get 3. Because some of these teams are going to have to get a veteran. Like, okay, we know Chicago likely getting a quarterback. Washington likely getting a quarterback. New England, we'll talk about them. We thought they were going to get a quarterback, but who's to say they don't get a veteran or do something else or bring back Mac Jones, which it's crazy to say, but may actually be in the cards. The Atlanta Falcons, they could also get a veteran. They're a team that I don't think is that far away. Minnesota, if they don't bring back Kirk Cousins, they could get a quarterback that's another veteran. They don't have to go young. The Denver Broncos can get a quarterback that's a veteran. They don't have to go young. In fact, I think the Denver Broncos are more likely to want to tank for Shador than to settle for Bo. So once you get past those teams, Las Vegas, maybe.
Why not Las Vegas? If they do not take a quarterback at 13 and all those guys are still there, that would be ridiculous.
Maybe, but they have a lot of issues. Like they don't have their defense is basically Max Crosby and figure the rest out. Like they need to figure out the defense. Their first round pick last year basically didn't play much. So they have issues there. They got issues in the running game potentially with Josh Jacobs, and their line is great. It's terrible. They have a lot of issues. So these teams.
Wait, I'll give you more teams. New Orleans, they have Derek Carr, but you know
their first round pick on the 14th pick.
Maybe Seattle. That makes a lot of sense. They have Geno on sort of a bridge deal right now. You could go down the list. I wouldn't rule out the Rams. They got to look forward.
So you look at those teams, especially Seattle and Los Angeles, teams with a lot of skill position talent. Do you look at them and say, hey, if you're gonna, those are teams that likely you're looking at a bridge quarterback playing before the next? That's a wasted pick to me. Like those teams can compete in the NFC next year. Like if you're the LA Rams, if I was a Rams fan and they drafted a quarterback in the first round, I'd say, what the hell are we doing? We got great weapons. We got great young defensive players. Like we need to continue to build around Stafford and go all in, like we talked about with Jerry Jones. Going all in for them next year is not drafting a quarterback.
But Jerry kind of secretly hinted that they might look at quarterback too. I think you go all in at quarterback because what are you doing? You said that's a waste of a first round pick.
Yeah.
You could get every position after the first round. I think you cannot really find great quarterbacks later on. That is a much rarer feat. So you have to heavily invest in quarterback. And the finances say quarterback. Look at Dak Prescott's probably going to get a $60 million contract. We see Herbert was over $50 million. Obviously Mahomes, obviously Lamar Jackson. So you're going to have to pay $50 million. I think to have a guy for 5 years at cost control is so important to these teams. And that's why quarterbacks often get bumped into the end of the first round. So you say take another position, but if you think this is the best quarterback class in years, then you have to jump all over it.
But that's where I think we differ, is I don't look at this quarterback class and say that this is a class with guys with 5 or 6 first-round grades. I mean, I see 3 guys that I would say for sure. Michael Penix, as great as he throws the ball.
Explain to me why Michael Penix does not have a first-round grade.
He has no knees.
That's
a very important fact, Perloff. He has 2 reconstructive ACL injuries.
Science has advanced. Guys can overcome injuries like that, like they never have before.
That's not one, like usually one. You
he's
say
a
okay,
quarterback.
we're okay.
He's not a wide receiver. And also, by the way, I heard a report.
He's playing football.
I heard from an agent that he's running crazy fast 40s. He looked amazing at the combine.
He wouldn't run
perfectly healthy.
He wouldn't run on Saturday.
I don't know why he did. I think he'll run at his pro day. But regardless, I mean, look at Seattle's at 16. They've been watching him up close. You don't think that he would be great throwing to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett?
I like him, but there's a health situation that you have to consider. Like, I mean, I think there are Giants fans that are saying, hey, maybe we trade down and we get Michael Penix. I've heard that a bunch. If you're the Giants, why are you going to move off of Daniel Jones' ACL to go with another guy with coming off 2 torn ACLs? Like, to me, that doesn't make sense either. And so he's a guy that maybe first-round grade in terms of performance, but health, that would scare me a little bit. I'm looking at these other guys. You mentioned J.J. McCarthy.
Well, that is one I don't understand.
The guys won a lot, but I mean, how much did he had to do? We talk about it all the time, the Josh Allen quote where I got an A on the test, but didn't feel like I really did much. Like, that was pretty much J.J. McCarthy's most of his career at Michigan, was where they were relying on the run game and relying on the defense. Do I see a first-round pick? I didn't really love how I saw him throwing the ball at the combine. I thought he was okay throwing to the right, throwing to the left. He was all over the place. That didn't look like a very accurate quarterback to me. And then the Bo Nix thing, the guy's like 100 years old. Like, so again, I'm drafting a quarterback now who I may be able to sign or trade for a guy who's just the same age. I might have a guy on the roster who's the same age as Bo Nix. So I don't know.
But that's Brock Purdy. That's Bo Nix is Brock Purdy. I think that's a new trend. Get the experienced college quarterback.
Right.
By the way, I'm totally with you on J.J. McCarthy. I don't totally understand it because he was not productive at Michigan. But I got to tell you, there are a lot of smart people who are saying he could even. Chris Sims, I believe, said he could even break into the top 3, go ahead of Drake May.
J.J. McCarthy, to me, feels like, and this guy did go in the first round. He didn't go as high as they said he would. He feels like the Mac Jones of this draft. Remember when Mac Jones...
Mac Jones had gigantic numbers. He's the opposite of J.J. McCarthy.
But remember, at the time, they kept saying Mac Jones is going to climb up to number 3.
Right, because everyone thought Kyle Shanahan liked Mac Jones, and they had the 3 pick.
Right, and it seemed crazy, not because of the production, but because we all saw Mac Jones as an athlete and said, this guy is not a top 3 quarterback type player. That's not... He clearly, and we've seen the NFL, he clearly isn't that guy.
But McCarthy's an incredible athlete. That's his main strength.
Right, but he doesn't match the production that Mac had. That's why I'm saying he reminds me of the Mac Jones draft, where people are climbing him up for something that doesn't really equate. Like, okay, you can say athletically, he may look like a quarterback that should be drafted very high. But do I look at his numbers? Do I look at how he played and say this guy's a top 3 pick? No, of course not. Well, and Mac Jones was the same way. It was like, how are you going to say a guy that we know is playing with all these NFL receivers and is playing in this great offense and is just throwing the ball to wide open guys and say that guy's a top 3 pick? At the end of the day, guess what happened? He wasn't. He fell later in the first round. I think the same thing will happen to McCarthy. We're saying he's going to be this high, but if he falls, that wouldn't surprise me.
The pick that actually works in favor of a lot of these guys, Anthony Richardson went all the way up to number 4 with the Colts, basically because of his offseason workouts, because he's the greatest athlete to ever walk into the combine. It wasn't because of any production in Florida. So I do think that you can wow people in shorts and get drafted high at quarterback.
But is there anybody in this class who athletically matches up to Anthony Richardson?
Joe Milton, but his production was terrible.
He's not going to be in
Joe Milton can do a lot of the things that Anthony Richardson can, including
but I'm saying those guys that we're
yards.
Talking about, whether it's Nix, whether it's Penix, whether it's McCarthy is a very good athlete, but Anthony Richardson is an alien. There are very few humans like him. Like, there's nobody in this draft like that. So to me, if you're talking about going 5 deep, 6 deep, you got to give me something more than, a 24-year-old quarterback with bad knees, a 23-year-old quarterback where it took him 5 years to figure out how to play in college football, and then McCarthy, who was throwing for 200 yards, 150 yards, and winning games, 28-6. Like, that doesn't impress me. And I can't imagine that there are other NFL teams who don't feel the same way, who say, you know what, we'd be better off going after Justin Fields or going after Kirk Cousins or going after Russell Wilson. I know that.
Yeah, but you got to pay those guys. That's the issue. It's a salary cap issue. So here's a question. If you had 2 teams and you were just picking and you needed to win the game, it was a must-win game, would you want Drake May as your quarterback right now or Michael Penix?
Oh,
my gosh.
No, the reason why I'm pausing is because May's a better athlete. So May, he would scare me. Maybe this is ACC PTSD. I think Miami literally lost all their games to North Carolina in all the years Drake May was there, and I saw him win games late. So maybe this is me being a little biased. But May's ability to create things off platform. Like, the one thing I love about Penix is that he is so good at going through progressions and just making the throws. But there are times in the NFL we see where things are going to break down. And how do I trust his ability to make plays when things break down? I thought in the national championship game, that was probably the most under pressure he had been in throughout his entire time at Washington. And he looked like a very different quarterback. He did not play well. So that's the reason that gives me pause. I think I wonder with Drake May if he would give me ability to run a little bit, really to make plays off platform. That would make me maybe lean May as much as I love Penix as a thrower.
I mean, you're talking about the games that Drake May lost compared to losing to Michigan, who is stacked and is basically putting 20 guys in this draft. I think that's an unfair comparison.
But I've seen May do what you just said. Like, and I know I've seen Penix do it too. But I've seen May go and that shootout against what was it, Appalachian State 2 years in a row where they're scoring a million points. Again, the games against Miami. He's had games where they've had to come back late or he's had to make a late drive. And I've seen him again do it where it's not necessarily him just standing in the pocket just throwing to the open guy. Some of it is him having to create plays. And when you get to those late second or late last minute drives, a lot of times it is the off script stuff that happens. Patrick Mahomes running for a first down on 4th and 1. Like, I want the guy that can give me that if I need it for one possession to save my life.
All right, give us a call, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Does anyone want to stick up for the next tier of quarterbacks? Any J.J. McCarthy stands out there? Anybody into Penix like me? Anyone think Bo Nix is a first-round quarterback? I got to tell you, Vegas thinks Bo Nix is a first-round quarterback and thinks he could go as high as number 12 to the Broncos. And Bo Nix looked really good, by the way. We knew Bo Nix was a good athlete, good arm. I think we have a show bet brewing, too. Over-under 4.5 quarterbacks going in the first round. And I think we need some sort of, I have over 4.5, you have under 4.5, and we need a show punishment. Maybe we need to lean on Pete Bellotti, who seems to dislike both of us. What can we do? What's a good punishment for EJ and I if we get the wrong number of quarterbacks?
I feel like we should have to do something related to NFL combine stuff. Like, your knees got to get better, but maybe we have to run gassers or something. Like have us just run 100-yard sprints.
Or do one of those drills where you jump over pads or all that.
Oh, I don't think either you or I are jumping over anything at this point where our bodies are.
We already have a great bet coming. You have to wear a wrestling singlet.
Great.
Have we announced where you're going to wear that singlet yet? I can't remember, but it's going to be amazing.
We have not. I don't think we've announced it. I think we should wait for Maggie to announce it.
Yeah,
it's going to be major.
It's going to be thoroughly embarrassing. I won the bet because this was about Michigan versus Alabama, and I won. So I do not have to do anything embarrassing, but I'm kind of feeling the need to get a good show bet going.
I think it's not even that. Like, I think you're feeling the need to wear something weird because we're doing something.
I'm a little jealous of the singlet.
So now
I have
you're just
to
like,
admit.
let's just do any kind of show bet so I could do something.
But I feel really good about this one. I feel there are going to be 5 quarterbacks at least, maybe 6 quarterbacks go, and I'm going to win another bet against you.
That's funny. I feel like it's going to be either 4 or 5. Like, I think the 6 number that's thrown out there, I don't think that's going to happen, but I think it's going to be right on that line. But again, like, I need to be convinced that these other teams, that if they don't get one of these top 3 guys, that they're going to be able to go and sell their fan base, hey, we're drafting a quarterback who likely won't play next year. And some of these teams that we're talking about, again, if I was an Atlanta Falcons fan, I would be like, what are we doing at this point? Like, we are a team that has been kind of, 3 straight years, 7 wins? Like if you're drafting a quarterback at 8 and you don't get one of those top 3 guys, I start to question things because I look at that Falcons team, I see a lot of talent. I see skill position talent. I see Jesse Bates, one of my all-time favorite players in the NFL. Defensively, he's a stud at safety. Like, I see a team that in that division could easily win 10 games next year if you get the right guy.
Yeah.
If you get the 4th quarterback or the 5th quarterback in this draft, and you're telling me that's the guy that's going to lead you to the promised land, that would be very disappointing, in my opinion. To me, if those teams want a quarterback, they need to trade up. They need to go and get Drake May and get Jaden Daniels. Just pay whatever you want to get those guys. To say that we're going to just settle for Bo Nix, I don't love that strategy.
All right, coming up next, we're going to talk to a CBS Sports draft insider who was in Indy with his ear to the ground and has strong opinions on these quarterbacks. I think he's going to agree with me. We have a great show bet brewing, but we're going to talk to an insider next, right here, Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. 30 seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
All right, we got a show bet brewing. Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. Maggie out today, EJ Stewart sitting in, and we have a big debate about how many quarterbacks will be going in the first round. I say over 4.5. EJ says under. I mean, I think you could have a half a quarterback if it was a guy who played multiple positions. I don't know. But I say 5 or 6. EJ says 4. We got to come up with some stakes, and we got to make them really embarrassing.
I got one.
Oh,
what do you got, Pete?
Let's get it.
Well, you could choose because I'm a nice man, so you could choose. The first would be run gassers for a week.
Okay.
Second would be do the Oklahoma drill with an NFL athlete.
Oh, I'm not doing this.
I gotta tell you,
I'll do one.
I did an Oklahoma drill with Zach Gelb once here. Do you guys know how strong Zach Gelb is?
I was playing quarterback for that.
Yeah. He's terrifying. He's got to weigh, the afternoon host here on CBS Sports Radio, he's got to weigh 300 pounds, and he's pretty strong.
7'5", too.
Yeah,
Not anymore.
Yeah, Zach's slimmed down a lot.
Oh, but he's muscular.
He's in great shape now.
I actually ran like a little kid away from him.
I
That was
remember.
sad.
I was like, "Where are you going? You're supposed to protect me. You're the outside
Yeah, I don't know
lineman."
if I could do an Oklahoma drill. How about a kicker? I ran into Robbie Gould, the longtime NFL kicker.
Kicker.
Yeah, I'll do an Oklahoma drill with him.
No kickers.
No kickers.
No,
See, you
come
left
on.
it out for me, Pete. You didn't specifically say that.
No kickers.
I think the gassers are good. I feel like that's fair. That's a football punishment.
Okay.
I've ran gassers before. They suck.
Well, we all want to get in shape, though.
For a
So that
week.
might.
Yeah, I mean, it's a week is tough, but I mean, what are we doing? Like 10, 100-yard sprints?
No, a week straight.
No, I know what I'm saying, but like how many?
How about we run steps? Because they're actually.
Isn't that the same thing?
No, gassers are like you're running like 100 yards.
Yeah, it's more of a sprint.
It's like we had to find like a field, which I mean, again, I'm fine to do. There's a soccer field actually. Not
What's
that
the
far
one
from
where
here.
you run to the 5-yard line, run back, run to the 10-yard line, run back?
That's like suicides, but I
You
guess that's
can't
just kind
call
of like
them
that.
By the way, you're not allowed to call them that anymore.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, that's a high school basketball.
Whatever
really?
those are called,
Yes.
run those.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm down for it. I want to get in better shape anyway, so I'm okay with that. I don't think I'll have to because I think that these quarterbacks are being a little overrated.
We'll see. We're going to talk to a draft expert in a moment from CBS, Ryan Wilson. But first, Andrew Bogusch with headlines.
Guys, I think this takes care of all the individual records for Caitlin Clark, the Iowa superstar, passing Pete Maravich yesterday for the most points in major college basketball history. The pair of free throws against Ohio State. She scored 35 total in the 93-83 win, leaving her on 3,685 points. 18 more for now than Pistol Pete.
Just to be in the same realm of all these players that have been so successful, whether it's Pete or whether it's Kelsey Plum or Lynette Woodard, like all these people have just given so much to the game. So, hopefully somebody comes after me and breaks my records and I can be there supporting them. And that's what makes the game of basketball so fun.
Lynette Woodard was the number one women's scorer. Plum had the most points in NCAA women's history. Clark passed both of them in the last month. Up next is the Big Ten tournament. Clark and the Hawkeyes clinching the 2 seed in that bracket with this win yesterday. As the combine closes, NFL owners will hold their annual big important meetings later this month. That's when the competition committee will propose a new kickoff setup, some form of what the XFL uses. Whatever that new formula is, it requires a change to onside kick procedures as well. That proposal reportedly looks like this. You can only do it if you're trailing in the fourth quarter, and you must declare that you're trying one. That's because you're normally limited to 5 players on each side of the field, but you would be able to switch to 6 and 4 for the onside kick to maybe make it successful.
I don't get it, and I'm shocked. The NFL is not normally this aggressive with their rule changes. This one feels very XFL-y to me.
No, but they need to make the change because the kickoff is not a thing anymore. I mean, we have so many touchbacks. Onside kicks are impossible because they don't allow uneven lines. Like, look, this may be a kind of, you live with, the devil that you know, devil you don't know. Like, the rules suck right now, but I prefer anything over what we have. Like, so if you're going to say, okay, we can actually have unbalanced lines, okay, fine. They got to declare whatever. I'm fine with that because what was once the most exciting play in the sport has now become just nothing. Like, it's not even a thing anymore. You can't have onsides. Onsides are like basically like a 2% chance of getting them. And you don't have kickoff returns anymore. So, like, if you're not going to change it, then just give them the ball at 25 and start from there. So I'm all for changing it. I don't know how this will work per se, but they need to do something.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Every time NFL does something, any rule they make, there's always all kinds of unforeseen consequences.
Right.
And this one, the way the NFL works, just feels like it's going to be a mess, and teams are going to complain, and fans are going to complain, and no one's going to know what's going on, and it's going to be something else for the officials to figure out. Maybe I'm sounding like an old fogey here, but I just don't get it. This is a little too much for me.
The onside kick portion of it?
Yeah,
or
the onside kick portion
thing?
where they line, where the kicking team lines up on the other side of the ball down by the. That's. I mean, first of all, I read all the reactions to it. Nobody understands it, too, because it's basically gives such an advantage to the kicking team that didn't exist before.
Well, it used to exist. Like, you used to be able to line up however many guys you wanted on one side, and what would happen was you'd have basically safety concerns where you had 8 guys from the kicking team going in and crushing the team trying to receive the ball, and that led to injuries, which is why
I know.
Yeah, which is why they decided to say, hey, like, you have to have even lines now, which makes it way more difficult to recover an onside kick. So I'm for giving them. I know it's only 6, but like I would take that over what we've had. Like, again, like, and the only thing I think that I don't like is the idea that you have to declare or you have to figure out what time of the game it is. Well, declaring I don't mind as much because you have to based on, I guess, the way the new kickoff will be. But you should be able to do it whenever you want. Like, I think that you should, if Dan Campbell wants to go for it on a 4th down on his own 30, he should be able to decide, hey, we're down 14 in the third quarter. I want to change the game. I want to do an onside kick. That should be part of the rule. I don't know why you have to be down 1 score or in the 4th quarter. I don't get that.
I think it all connects to why the kickoff is in danger to begin with and why they're going to this XFL thing, which is, and if you don't know what that is, you basically line up either on the kicking side, like the return side of the field. One group is on the 40-yard line, the other's on the 35, and they have to stay in this little box until the ball is inside the 20 or being brought back out. And it's all designed to limit literally 2 grown men running full force into each other. That's what they're trying to avoid. So I think with the onside kick, you can't have an onside kick without that happening. So they want to have as few onside kicks as possible, hence making you wait until you're down in the 4th quarter, which limits the possibility of it ever happening.
Which I get a little. I do get that, but how many times do we actually see teams take that risk of saying, now we never see it because it's a stupid play. But like even before, when the onside rules were different, it wasn't like you had a bunch of teams going for onside kicks in the 3rd quarter or 2nd quarter. It just seems like an added thing that kind of takes away another fun part of the sport, which is surprise onside kicks. How many times have we seen that, or onside kicks early in the game?
I guess on the flip side, if it didn't happen that much, we're not really going to miss it.
That's fair. It's fair. Though the most famous onside kick, of course, happened in
2009
start of the 3rd quarter. So now the surprise element we weren't going to have anyway. But the fact that could even be part of the game, I still like. These are Madden rules, by the way. I think in Madden, if you play online, you actually can't do onside kicks under certain circumstances.
Really?
Yeah, because if you play a certain player, like they'll just do an onside kick every time.
I can't wait for Lions coach Dan Campbell to get a hold of this rule, too. Who knows what he's going to do? There's going to be some amazing mistakes. I will give you, it will be entertaining.
If the 3-cone drill is not your thing, you had Celtics Warriors yesterday afternoon for like 10 minutes. Boston racing to an 82-38 lead at halftime. They won 140-88. Steph Curry saying postgame, that's what we used to do to teams.
They're the best team in the league right now. And they play like it.
Steph scored 4 points, missed all 9 threes he took, didn't play after halftime. The Celtics have now won 11 in a row. They are the first team ever with 3 50-point wins in a season. That was yesterday afternoon. Last night, the Thunder blew a 24-point lead before winning in Phoenix, 118-110. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 35. Paolo Banchero had 29 as the Magic took care of Pearl's Pistons, 113-91. That's win number 35 for Orlando, more than they had all of last season. And the San Francisco Giants signed third baseman Matt Chapman over the weekend. 3 years, $54 million. Chapman can opt out after each of the first 2 years. Guys, back to you.
On this baseball, with Matt Chapman signing so late, they got to figure out the free agency thing. Like, I think you lose so much steam from the offseason and the excitement of guys possibly changing teams when you have them changing teams so late into the offseason. And we're not even in the offseason. Now we're in training. We're in spring training. Like, they got to fix it somehow.
And there's still nothing for Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery.
Right. And Blake Snell, you're talking about the Cy Young winner. Like, how is he not signed at this point?
Yeah, but the union apparently doesn't care.
Yeah, and that's at the end of the day, the union kind of runs Major League Baseball, so that's the biggest problem. But it's unfortunate because I feel like there's a lot of excitement for some of these guys, and you lose that when you have them signing so late.
All right, let's shift gears, get back to the NFL draft. And a good friend of the show, Ryan Wilson, was there covering the draft for CBS Sports HQ. And he has a new pod with the first pick, which I'm addicted to, where he fights with former NFL GM Rick Spielman consistently. Ryan, how you doing? We're going to be much nicer than Rick is to you.
It would be impossible, Perloff, to be anything other than that, because unless it's a prison guard situation. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I needed a break, so thanks for having me on.
I feel like Rick is showing respect to you by talking trash consistently throughout every podcast, and he actually begrudgingly agrees with many of your draft opinions. You guys, I assume, are super cool because he's actually a very nice guy.
He's one of the greatest people on planet Earth, and to your point, sometimes people leave comments on YouTube or Twitter, and they don't understand the relationship. But here's how it starts, and he'll make this clear. I'm just going to reflexively disagree with you, and then we'll figure things out as we go down the stretch. So,
all right. So Ryan, you were in Indy for the scouting combine. Who's the one player who just wowed you the most?
So I'm often accused of going to the combine or the Senior Bowl and falling in love with these players after I talk to them, and I plead guilty to that. But there were several people that absolutely blew me away. J.J. McCarthy, one of the most charismatic guys we've ever talked to. And it sort of happened last year, Perloff, with C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud had a good season at Ohio State. We knew about the Georgia game, changing some of our opinions about his athleticism. But you talk to him in person, and you get it. Like, okay, this guy's going to be able to lead not only people his age, but guys that are 6, 7, 8 years older than him. And, oh, by the way, he's a really good football player. No one expected what happened last year. But J.J. McCarthy's in a little different situation that he didn't do a whole bunch at Michigan. And then I went back and watched all of his third and long throws from last year. He completed 73% of his passes, 5 interceptions, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. And he was making the NFL throws that we like to talk about. And then you talk to him, and you're like, okay, there's no way a locker room of grown men aren't going to follow this guy. And, oh, by the way, he has a laser for an arm and can run really well. And I heard talking to some teams that he was the best quarterback on the proverbial board when they got him up there to talk X's and O's. He was really, really, really good at that. And he was an opinion changer because I was skeptical going through the season.
Wait, Ryan, is there any chance he breaks into the top 3 quarterbacks, which everyone presumes is Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels?
I think so. I think there are going to be some tough conversations. The other thing to remember is that no one knows, right? I sell myself as a draft guy. GMs and scouts talk about the draft as experts, but at the end of the day, Mr. Trubisky was the 2nd overall pick, and the Bears traded up for him. And, you hate to keep bringing that up, and hopefully the Bears get it right this time with Caleb Williams. But there's a realistic possibility that we see JJ go in the top 3. And I think probably top 5, all these quarterbacks may end up being off the board. It's just a matter of the order. And you know this Perloff and listen to the podcast, but Rick Spielman, who was a GM for 10+ years, is old school in that he wants to see everyone work out at every opportunity. But I don't begrudge Caleb or Jaden or Drake for not working out. But credit to JJ for doing that and remaining in people's minds, much like a year ago, CJ did the exact same thing at the Combine.
Hey, Ryan, EJ Stewart here. Now, I want to talk about these quarterbacks on a more wide-ranging level. So me and Perloff have been going back and forth about how many quarterbacks actually may go in this first round. And Perloff mentioned the 83 draft where you had 6, and that was the record. Is there a chance we could be approaching that kind of number? Like, we've been talking about maybe a 4.5 being an over and under. What do you think is the likelihood we go over that 4.5?
EJ, I was thinking 4.5 too, as you were speaking. I think 5 is going to be the question becomes, and it feels like in recent years teams have been less reflexive to do this in terms of drafting a guy in the first round to get the fifth-year option. Even this player wasn't a first-round grade. But we talked about Caleb and Drake, May, and Jaden Daniels. Those guys are all top 4 guys, worst case. And then J.J. McCarthy, where he fits in. And then we started getting into the Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix conversations. I don't get it with the with the Michael Penix Jr. talk about him not being a first-round pick. Injury history is okay. We can have a conversation. He had the 2 ACLs and the 2 shoulders when he was in Indiana. The last 2 years he's been healthy, and he talked to us about that on set last week. I love him as a first-round pick, and I think there's a chance maybe a team around picks 20 to 32 or a team trades up to that area in the draft in the first round and takes him for the 5th-year option. I like Bo Nix. I don't love Bo Nix, and that's probably unfair to Bo Nix because it feels like he's been around forever. He does a lot of things really well, but I don't know if there's any one thing that stands out. That doesn't mean he won't be a great player. I think teams are not as high on Bo Nix that I've talked to that some of the media people are, but I would take him on day 2 all day long, along with my guy Spencer Rattler, who I'm sort of driving the Spencer Rattler bus in the face of much adversity when going up against Rick Spielman and talking about it.
So, Ryan, I read your stuff on the draft, and everybody coming out of Indy said the same thing. There's tons of wide receivers, and there's tons of tackles in this year's draft, which sort of begs the question, can you wait to get one of those guys because it's such a deep draft, or do you have to jump on these wide receivers and tackles early on?
Oh, you can wait. And this wide receiver class might be the deepest, and I don't know how long. Now, that draft class, 2020, was it 2021, where Justin Jefferson and Nelson Aguilar and Brandon Ayuk and CeeDee Lamb and all those guys went off the board. Jefferson was the 5th wide receiver taken in that draft. I don't know if we're going to have that sort of depth, but these guys are so good, and what happens is we get to the combine and watch all of them run a 4.3, and then we love them even more. But a lot of these 4.3s that we saw, that's how fast those guys played on tape. Xavier Worthy, I don't know if he played at a 4.21, but he was the fastest guy in the field. And we talked to a couple of his teammates, and I jokingly asked, if you're starting a basketball team and you can have Xavier Worthy or their tight end Jatavian Sanders, who's 6'4" and incredibly athletic, or Adonai Mitchell, who ran into the 4.3s, every single one of them said we're taking Xavier Worthy, even though he's 5'11", 165, because of how good an athlete he is, and we sort of saw that on display. Offensive line-wise, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know what the prop bets are for when's the first defensive player go off the board in the draft, but we could have a run on 8 or 9 offensive guys before the first defensive player goes off the board, especially if they're those trade-ups. That includes these offensive tackles. I love Ola Fashanu. I love Joe Alt. Those guys are special. We talked to Tully Fuaga out of Oregon State. That guy has an edge. His job is to pancake people, and he takes a lot of pride in that, but he also moves like a tight end at times. You're going to get guys at the bottom of the first round who are going to be available. If the Chiefs, for example, are interested in getting offensive line help. But if you're the Chiefs, you can stay put and also get wide receiver help at the bottom of the first round. And unlike last year or the year before, where the draft with the quarterbacks is just Kenny Pickett and that's in the first round, and last year was we didn't know who the QB woman's going to be until the last minute. And if CJ had been the CJ we thought he was going to be, perhaps we take him first overall. This year is going to be fun. I think there's going to be a lot of trade-ups. I think there's going to be a lot of surprise players taken by teams, and the depth is going to last well throughout the first round, whether it's an offensive lineman or a wide receiver or even a defensive back. There are going to be some dudes going to get drafted that later in the draft are going to be impact players, I feel like.
Ryan, there are a lot of fans who look at the NFL draft as an opportunity to transform their rosters. A lot of optimism coming in because they feel like, hey, regardless of what we were last year, we can bring in a class that really changed the trajectory of our team. We saw that with the Texans last season. I want to exclude the Bears from this conversation because, of course, they have 1-9. But based on kind of where they sit and kind of the strengths of this draft, whether it be receiver or tackle, what are some teams that you look at and say, hey, this team, they have the most to gain from this draft, given the players that will be available and where they're picking?
Yeah, I think you have to start with the team right behind the Bears at the top, and that's the Commanders, because, we all saw the NFLPA survey that came out from the players, and the Commanders ranked last in every single category, from ownership to facilities to, how the cafeteria food was, it felt like. So they have a new owner, new GM, new head coach. Cliff Kingsbury's the offensive coordinator. We know the Cliff Kingsbury link. He coached Caleb last year at USC, and if you want to go back even further, he coached he was a Texas Tech coach and Patrick Mahomes back in 2017, and that's the link that we like to make with Caleb. That, number one. Number two, Washington has a ton of cap space. They can do virtually whatever they want in terms of fixing some of their holes in the offseason. They traded away Montez Sweat. They traded away Chase Young. They got 2 picks out of it, a second round and a third round. So they have 6 picks. The math here, they're doing 5 picks in the third round and in the first 3 rounds. And then they have one of the top picks in the 4th round. So they are absolutely loaded, and they can make a quick turnaround if they get it right. And it's a huge if, right? No one thought the Texans were going to be able to get C.J. Stroud, to get Tank Dell, to get Will Anderson Jr., and have them all contribute right away, especially when they were healthy in Tank Dell's case. So you have to have a little luck as well. But I think they're in a division that's relatively wide open. We know the Cowboys are the Cowboys, but it feels like once January rolls around, Dallas isn't the same team, and that manifested itself again this January. But I think this fan base, this area is waiting for something. They've been one of the best fan bases in football for decades, and then things went south for decades as well. So it feels like they have a chance to rebound, especially with the draft capital, opportunity to get a quarterback, and then all the draft picks after it.
Ryan, we're coming up against a break, so real quick, give me, I know you're based in fact, you look at the tape, give me one crazy rumor you heard in Indy that you can share with us and the more baseless, the better. What did you get?
I heard that the Bears might be interested in J.J. McCarthy. This was before any of the meetings, but going into the week, I heard the Bears might be interested in J.J. McCarthy.
All right, Ryan Wilson, we are going to be leaning on you all spring. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us so early, and we'll talk soon, bud.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, guys.
EJ, I know what you were doing there. You were hoping for a Jets answer, your team to transform them in the draft, which is an annual tradition. The Jets hoping for better luck. We will see.
It's funny. The Jets actually have drafted fairly well of late, and it still hasn't changed anything. You got 2 rookies of the year the same year, and still hapless situation.
That's a great point. All right, coming up, I will explain why the NBA season is already over. That's next, right here on Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. 1 minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. Maggie off today. EJ Stewart sitting in. So Saturday night, LeBron scored 40,000 points. We'll get into that. But it didn't feel like a Lakers showcase. They were playing the Nuggets on national TV, and they start off really well. They jumped out to an early lead. We're leading at half, but it felt inevitable that at some point, Nikola Jokic was going to lead the Nuggets to the win. And unfortunately, EJ, because I like drama just like everyone else, I don't know if there's any this NBA season. It feels like we're going to get a repeat champion for the first time in a little while, I think 6 years, because I don't see the formula to knocking off the Nuggets. Not just Jokic. The guys around him play such great team ball, and I think that Michael Porter Jr., you could see taking a step up. He's a young player who's even better now. Aaron Gordon seems perfect for his role. Just everything is right with this team, and I don't see anyone knocking them off at all, which kind of makes the rest of the NBA season kind of a fait accompli.
Well, that game was on ABC on Saturday,
right?
Did you turn on ABC on Sunday? Because there was another team that looked like a juggernaut that was killing a team that beat them in the finals a couple of years ago. That looked pretty good in Boston.
Well,
forget about them.
That game didn't count. That
What do
was
you mean it
like
didn't count?
That was
It's-
like a gym class basketball game. The Warriors fell behind and just gave up and didn't even really try the rest of the game.
Guess what? Boston has been doing that to everybody. Boston, that's their third win where they've beaten the team by at least 50 points. Like, they are a problem. If Denver thinks they're gonna just walk to an NBA championship and they think Boston's not gonna be a factor, you gotta be kidding me. Like, Boston.
Do you really think Boston? I know this might be for the sake of argument. Do you really think Boston can knock off Denver in a
Definitely.
7-game series? How?
How
are they going to handle
so
Jokic?
Deep, they're so long. They have multiple guys to guard Jokic.
And do you really think? Well, you think crunch time, Game 7. Say it gets to Game 7. You really trust Jason Tatum and maybe Jaylen Brown against all those guys on Denver who showed that they really don't feel any pressure come playoff time?
They got to come through at some point. Like I think you can't do the confirmation bias. You can't say, well, because we haven't seen those guys win a title, therefore they'll never win a title. Guess what? If you would have done that last year, no one would have thought the Nuggets were going to win a title. You would have done that 2 years before. You would have said Giannis is never going to win a title. Like, guys grow up, guys break through. Just like you're talking about Michael Porter Jr. growing up. Guess what? Jason Tatum is growing up. Jaylen Brown is growing up. And this is also the DNA of this Celtics team is totally different than the teams that were failing in the playoffs because they didn't have Drew Holiday, one of the best defenders. He can guard literally 4 positions, even though he's 6'2". They didn't have Derek White playing at this almost all-star caliber level, who was great again yesterday. And Kristaps Porzingis, he changes the whole landscape of the team because now they have a true stretch 5 who can also protect the rim. And you add that with Al Horford. I mean, their top 5 or 6 guys can play with absolutely anybody. You're talking about a series between the Nuggets and Celtics. You're probably talking about a toss-up. That's not a Nuggets wash the Celtics and get them out of here at all.
I don't see it. I really don't see it because I've watched this Celtics team. It's not that different of a core. Porzingis, who wasn't even there yesterday, I don't think he transforms everything. I do like Drew Holiday. He kind of annoys me as a Sixers fan. But it is really still Tatum and Brown. At the end of the day, they're going to have to do it. And they probably should have beaten that Warriors team a couple years ago.
Yeah.
They couldn't do it. I feel like the Nuggets are a much more formidable challenge than even that Warriors team. I agree with you. They do look great. I expect them to come out of the East. But I still really like this Nuggets team. And I'll tell you why. Because of Jokic. I mean, is there anything that guy can't do? He is right now the best player in the league, and I don't even think there's a close second. So it's a sport where the best player wins, and right now he is doing something, I'm not going to say Michael Jordan-like, but he's the number one guy, and the number one guy in the sense that he's going to lead his team to his title, because even if he's not totally feeling it, he could do so many other things to win, and I don't think the Celtics are having that guy. I don't think Tatum is that guy.
I don't know if it's because he's a center or it's because he's foreign, he's European, that he doesn't get talked about enough in a historical context. But I mean, we're watching one of the greatest centers of all time. We're watching one of the greatest players of all time. But it feels like we don't talk about him in that context. But the NBA playoffs game changes, and it becomes more of a defensive game. There's nobody, and I mean nobody in the NBA, who can guard you and shut you down like the Boston Celtics can right now. They can switch at almost every position. They have multiple guys that can guard multiple, just like I said. They have guys that can defend the rim, and Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis. They have multiple wing defenders and Tatum and Brown. When your two best players are also two of your best defenders, that translates across the entire team. And somehow they lost a defensive player of the year, Marcus Smart, and added a better defensive player in Jrue Holiday. So the Nuggets, they went to a championship last year, and they were phenomenal last year. They have not seen a defense like the Boston Celtics defense this year. And that playoff run they went on last year, Heat were a good defensive team, not a great defensive team. The Lakers were an okay defensive team, probably, I would say, not a great defensive team. The Celtics play, 5 great defensive players in their starting lineup? Like 1 through 5, they're awesome. So you talk about trying to score consistently against them. That's not going to be easy at all. Now the West, the Nuggets look like they're the best team. I can say that, but I cannot say for a championship that they're going to just walk over the Celtics.
The Nuggets, they have so many ways to beat you, though. They'll keep poking and prying until they find an advantage. Because remember, if it's not Jokic, it's Jamal Murray, or it's Aaron Gordon, or it's Porter gets hot. So I still think the Nuggets are going to.
But you know what also concerns me though. They don't have anybody on the wing that I think will really test Tatum and Brown. Those guys will be able to rest defensively. That's going to be a big factor if those teams play in a 7-game series.
All right, up next, we're going to get to NFL free agency. And to me, what would be the most significant quarterback move that would just change everything about the landscape for next season.
You're in a 5-minute break.
Okay. Tell me when you're ready. Oh. Xavier Worthy set the scouting combine on fire with a record 4.2140 on Saturday. Good. Oh, okay, ready. Okay. This is Andrew Perloff with an Odyssey Sports Minute. This is Andrew Perloff with a CBS Sports Minute. LeBron James passed 40,000 career points on Saturday. Scoring is up in the NBA, but LeBron is putting his all-time record out of reach. If you look at active players, Kevin Durant is second at just 28,000. Giannis is at 18. Luka's at just 10. No one is coming close. Here's the bigger problem. LeBron is scoring 25 points a game, and we don't know when he's going to stop. 40,000 is already nearly unbeatable. But if he gets to 45,000 or even more, no one will even come close. I'm Andrew Perloff.
Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
She was the Heisman Trophy winner in 1986. He left her off the ballot. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Just when you think you have the NFL figured out, they throw you a curveball. And we thought we had the Atlanta Falcons figured out. They were going to trade for Justin Fields and everything would fall into place from there. Not so fast. Welcome to Maggie and Perloff. Hour 3, EJ Stewart sitting in for Maggie Gray, who is off today somewhere on a beach with a margarita. Margarita nice. Maggie, speaking in her upstate New York accent, which she says when she has a few drinks. We'll see. She said, no, I'm not doing anything like that. But when she comes back tan on Tuesday, we'll know what happened. So this weekend at the Scouting Combine, a lot of reports came out, not just one, but multiple insiders threw out that the Atlanta Falcons are not interested in Justin Fields, the Bears quarterback. They actually want free agent Kirk Cousins. So now we have to deal with two things. One, that would mean Kirk Cousins would leave Minnesota. Minnesota would need a quarterback. Yep. And two, that takes away the most logical place for the Bears to trade Justin Fields. Now, I understand the logic of this. They have a lot of skill position talent in Atlanta, and they need someone to get the ball. And nobody's better at that than Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins won't win you a ton of playoff games, but he will throw for 5,000 yards. Throws a really catchable ball. He would get the most out of Drake London. I think he would help Bijan. I think he would help the Atlanta offense. But he's coming off an Achilles tear, and he's going to be expensive. I mean, we're talking high 30s, maybe $40 million a year. To me, they're sitting at number 8 in the draft, and they have two other options that are cheaper, Justin Fields and the draft. I don't see why this is the perfect marriage. Apparently, owner Arthur Blank reportedly is all in on spending money to make this work. If they sign Kirk Cousins, they might win the NFC South. But I'm not putting some huge ceiling on this team where Kirk Cousins is going to lead the Atlanta Falcons to the Super Bowl. I think they got to sort of reset and start over and get a rookie on a cheap deal and figure this out and build it the traditional way. Kirk Cousins is supposed to join a team that is really close to winning, and I don't see Atlanta as that.
I love this. This, to me, is a little bit of a lighter version of what we saw the Rams do with getting Matt Stafford.
Oh, come on.
Oh, no, it is. Getting a quarterback who hasn't had a lot of playoff success, hasn't been able to show that he can win the biggest games, and saying, hey, given the players we have, the skill position talent that we have. We add a veteran, we could turn a team that looks like a meh team into a team that can really compete.
Veteran, but Matthew Stafford is a different player than Kirk Cousins.
No, he's not.
Oh,
Matthew Stafford and you look at Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins' numbers. They're pretty much the same. Kirk Cousins actually won more. Is actually won more than Matt Stafford before he got to L.A.
Who's a more talented quarterback?
Matt Stafford throws the ball better, but that's that.
Yes.
I'm talking about production, though. I'm talking about production, wins and losses. Things that we actually count, not just like
Matthew Stafford.
Not just things we can look at our eyes and say, "Oh, I think the guy's good. I think this other guy is better." Like Kirk Cousins has been just as successful in the NFL prior to Matt Stafford winning a championship than Matthew Stafford was when he was at the Lions. Like Kirk Cousins was with the Commanders.
Stafford going to L.A. is not the same as Kirk Cousins off this injury going to Atlanta.
The injury is the only part that's different.
There's another huge part.
What?
It's called Sean McVay was in L.A. and he knew that Matthew Stafford would be perfect for his system.
You know who's the
Zach
OC?
Robinson, who is not Sean McVay.
He's Sean McVay light. He was his OC. He wasn't calling the plays because McVay calls the plays. But he's basically was Sean McVay's protege. He's the guy that's been learning from him over the last few years. You couldn't get a better guy to learn from if you're going to take a guy who's a Sean McVay light. Like, I don't know. I think this is actually a perfect fit because I love the Atlanta Falcons and what they have going.
Kirk Cousins is older. Stafford was 33 when he went to the Rams. Okay. Kirk Cousins is now 35, and he's going to turn 36 before the season. And you're going to have to pay him a huge chunk of your salary cap. And I know you have these weapons there, and Drake London's really good, and Kyle Pitts hasn't shown us a thing, and Bijan's a good running back. But they have not built this team the right way.
No, Kyle Pitts had 1,000 yards in his first year, and then Arthur Smith seemed to forget he was on the roster. He couldn't find him on the milk carton, apparently, because he couldn't find a way to throw him the ball. Like, I'm not going to blame Kyle Pitts for their bad quarterback play and bad coaching. Even Raheem Morris was like, "Hey, I wouldn't even be here if we had better quarterback play." So I don't think that's all on Kyle Pitts. Bijan Robinson, stud. Tyler Algier, stud. Drake London, stud. Like, they got great athletes.
I mean, they've been using their top 10 picks on skill position players when they should be using them on both lines. That's how you build a champion.
Yeah.
Look at New England. Look at Philly. Look at all the really, really elite teams. They've kind of done everything backwards. They've said, let's start on the outside and move in, and it hasn't worked. They've been a 500 team or below 500, barely below 500 for a long time now. I don't see them changing radically with Kirk Cousins. This is not the fit to me.
But this is
Kirk
not
Cousins has to go to a team that's really close to winning. And Atlanta, they'll probably win the NFC South at 9-8.
No,
you get Justin Fields in there and go 9-8 too.
No, but we got to think about where you are as a franchise. The Atlanta Falcons have been a dormant franchise. You talk a bunch about how they're irrelevant, and it's very few times really talk about them or they're worth mentioning because of how irrelevant they've been. Think about where they've been as a franchise, not making the playoffs, not being part of the conversation, and where they could be if you add a guy like Kirk Cousins. You could be talking about a team that's a playoff contender, a team that could be a
They will be a
playoff.
They were a playoff contender this year.
Right, exactly. And that was with Desmond Ridder.
Because the NFC
and
South, it doesn't mean anything.
What do you mean it doesn't mean anything?
It doesn't mean anything because you can win that division at 8-9 like Tom Brady did his last year.
It does mean something because guess what? The Buccaneers won the division last year and they won a playoff game. And then they went up into Detroit and they were one series away from winning that game. It wasn't, once you get into the tournament, that's all that matters. That's what Bill Parcells always says. It's about getting to the playoffs. This idea that you shouldn't make a move that makes you better because you'll win a division that's bad. I don't know how that makes any sense.
So Kirk Cousins, first of all, if you're going to pay $40 million for Kirk Cousins, you better be thinking deep playoff run. I don't see that happening in Atlanta. By the way, these skill position players, I'm looking at their depth chart. Drake London's great.
Yeah.
But then you got Van Jefferson's wide receiver 2, Kadarius Hodge, our guy Matt Collins. I don't know that there's that much.
But he's a good player when he's healthy.
I don't think there's a ton of talent there. I think Atlanta.
You got 2 great running backs.
I think Atlanta's made a lot of questionable personnel decisions over the last 4 or 5 years, and I think that's why they're sort of stuck in mediocrity. I don't know if Kirk Cousins. Honestly, I like Kirk Cousins better in Minnesota. Stay with Justin Jefferson. Come back and throw for 4,800 yards. And I thought last year they looked really good when he was there. This to me is not the fit for him at all. I would go young quarterback, either rookie or go Justin Fields.
You mentioned the thing about the comparison to McVay and how the Stafford thing was different because McVay essentially picked Stafford as his hand-picked guy that could run his offense. Who was the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings just these past few years? Kevin O'Connell. Where did he come from?
Okay, it came from LA.
Okay, so we've seen Kirk Cousins running a version of that offense.
But
put up explosive numbers. Why is it so hard to see him not being able to do that in Atlanta?
And what did Kirk Cousins win in Minnesota?
No, he won 13 games last year. when he was healthy.
I feel like there's a consistent theme running in this show so far that you're just okay to get to the playoffs. Like, what are we doing?
They're the Atlanta Falcons.
So
we're not talking about the Dallas Cowboys.
What's the point? I mean, we're just trying to get in the playoffs. You got to Atlanta. By the way, has been to a Super Bowl in our lifetime twice.
Pearl. In order to win a Super Bowl, you have to eventually get to the playoffs.
In order to win a Super Bowl,
they haven't been able to get to the playoffs the last 3 or 4 years. Like, you got to be able to crawl before you walk.
You need a cornerstone quarterback. You need a franchise quarterback, and 35-year-old Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles is a 1 or 2 year fix.
Wait, Kirk Cousins has been a franchise quarterback. What do you mean?
I mean, you need a guy on a rookie deal who is going, if you really, really want to get to the highest level, you got to find your long-term answer here. If you get Kirk Cousins, he maybe's there 1-2 years. I think you need a 10-year solution in Atlanta, and you got to start thinking about that.
Why is Kirk Cousins only there for 1 or 2 years? We have quarterbacks playing until they're 40.
He just had an Achilles tear.
Right, and I'm very concerned about that. But he'll be playing indoors. He'll be on turf. He's been playing in a lot of warm weather cities. You got Tampa as a road game. Carolina, depending on where it is in the season, if it's early enough in the season, that's a warm weather game. And he's playing 2 games in the Dome, of course.
Matt Ryan's only 38 right now, and he's already gone from Atlanta. You think Kirk Cousins is going to be good to 40? Why?
Because we've seen other guys play at a high level. And by the way, Matt Ryan, when he left Atlanta, was actually a highly coveted guy. It wasn't like when
his last year in Atlanta was not great.
He played okay. I don't know he was fine. That's why Indianapolis took him, because it was like, hey, we'll get rid of the younger guy in Carson Wentz, who was a locker room cancer. We'll bring in Matt Ryan because of what he did in Atlanta, and we'll be fine. It didn't work out because they couldn't protect Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan broke down.
Matt Ryan had 20 touchdowns and 12 picks his last year in Atlanta, and they were 7-10.
How many
they
yards
were 4 and 12 the years. I don't have the yard. He's got 3,968.
It's a good season.
In 17 games for Matt Ryan, that's not good. It was his first non-4,000 yard season since 2010.
Right, but
it was a huge drop in production.
Yeah, but it wasn't like he was terrible. You're acting like he threw 20 picks last.
And he, by the way, was not good in Indianapolis.
No, and I said because he got hurt and they couldn't protect him. That was a big factor. But besides the point, Kirk Cousins played way better than Matt Ryan played in his last years in both Indy and Atlanta. So you can bring up the Matt Ryan conversation, but that's not who we're talking about. We're talking about a guy who's still playing at a Pro Bowl level before he got hurt. He was turning around the Vikings season. He was the hottest quarterback in the NFL before he got hurt this season.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins signs with Atlanta. Does he reach a Super Bowl with the Falcons? I'll answer that for you. No.
Okay, but I don't understand the concept that you don't you don't trade for a guy or you don't sign a guy because you don't think you're going to win a Super Bowl.
What's the point? What else are we doing here?
What's the point?
Why would you sign a guy?
No, but first of all,
is it a stopgap?
No, you're signing him because he's a much bigger upgrade than what you have and what you have available. Do I think Bo Nix is going to lead them to a Super Bowl? Hell no. I'll tell you that right now. I'll stand on business on that. They will never win a Super Bowl with Bo Nix as their quarterback. I don't know if they win a Super Bowl with Michael Penix as their quarterback.
Bo Nix is just as old as Kirk Cousins. He has as much experience.
But that's the thing, though. It's all about, to me, it's all about your options. You look at the quarterbacks that are out there. You have these rookies where if you're drafting 8th, you're probably taking the 4th or 5th best quarterback in this draft. Or you look at the other options for trade assets or guys you want to sign. So if you're looking at trade, you're saying, okay, I'm going to take Justin Fields, who has not won anything in the NFL, or I'm going to take Russell Wilson, who's way worse than Kirk Cousins. They're just not these options that I look at and say, oh, they make us a much better team. So I don't look at it from the Falcons standpoint and say, okay, I'll take a flyer on the 4th best quarterback in this draft because I don't think Kirk Cousins can win me a Super Bowl.
Well, here's the other thing, too. If you sign Kirk Cousins, you're talking about 3 years, $130, $150 million, some huge salary cap clogging deal that really limits your growth moving forward. And also, I don't like that Arthur Blank reportedly is getting involved in this, too, and says spend away. Atlanta has not done a great job team building, and I don't see this as any difference. Call us 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Do you think Kirk Cousins to the Falcons, it's a good job? I mean, honestly, just stay in Minnesota, be a Pro Bowler. That's another team who I don't think is going to make the Super Bowl. I like Kirk a lot personally, and I think he's a really effective quarterback. But Atlanta needs an answer here. What are we doing? Are we just going to win the NFC South at 9-8 and then lose in the second round of the playoffs? That's the goal. Then why even try.
But what do you think is their ceiling? That's my question. Because to me, like, you keep saying, well, we're not going to win a Super Bowl. We're only going to win the division. Like, that's a bad thing. What's bad about winning the division?
Why are you crediting winning the NFC South? Who cares?
Because you want to play winning football. You got to build.
Why? You don't even need to play winning football to win that division. The Bucks were 8-9 2 years ago.
No, but then they won. They won 10 games last year or 9 games last year, and then they won a playoff game. And winning
they
football,
beat a spiraling Eagles team. But okay,
but they did win a game. And if they were such a fraud, then why did the Lions go and crush them?
All right.
Because clearly, it's the NFL, man. These guys are all, it's the saying they're all on scholarship too. Like, we could talk about the NFC South and how weak it is and how bad these teams are. But at the end of the day, everybody puts on their pants the same way they got to go out there and play football.
So if I'm an owner and I'm looking at a new GM and I say, EJ Stewart, what's your goal for this team? Win the NFC South. That's what you got.
Most NFL teams would accept that.
I would not accept that.
I hope I don't get hired to be a head coach for a team that Andrew Perloff owns.
Win any other division, great. But winning the NFC South means nothing to me.
Perloff, that's the first step to any level of success in the NFL, is winning your division.
Just happen to be in the right crappy division.
I would guarantee
so they won it this year at 9-8.
Yeah.
The NFC South is bad. EJ.
I know. Right, and they won 7 games in that division with no quarterback.
Watch
so you're telling me like, and that's the thing too. I also reject this notion that the Falcons are going to be some 9-win divisional winner. I don't accept that at all because they won 7 with Tyler Heineke, who was hurt when he tried in the game, and then of course they had Ritter, who started the season, who was terrible almost the entire season. There's no way you tell me that if I get the Kirk Cousins that I've seen in Minnesota for the last 2 or 3 years, that guy doesn't win me at least 3 more games. There's no way. I saw them win games. They were winning 15 to 13.
So then they go 10-7.
10-7, 11 wins, I think is possible. Sure.
All right. I just
if you win 10, 11 games, by the way, now you're talking about a home playoff game and maybe a second home playoff game, depending on how the things shake out.
Watch him sign Kirk Cousins, then Derek Carr gets hot and the Saints win this division, or Baker stays in Tampa and they win. I just don't. I don't see Atlanta doing things the right way, and it's really about the recent history of Atlanta. They've just not, in my opinion, not done a good job drafting.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to catch up. I do, like you, we're both big Jesse Bates fans. That's one thing we bonded on a long time ago. But I don't
stuff from last year.
Just don't love this fit. I just don't love the overall team building here of Atlanta. Again, give us a call if you want Kirk Cousins in a Falcons uniform. 855-212-4CBS. All right, coming up, the most unbreakable record in the NBA might be now the most unbreakable record in all of sports. We'll get into that right here. Maggie and Perloff Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. Maggie's out today. EJ Stewart sitting in. I feel very judged. Very extremely judged.
Why?
I felt like all of a sudden I was a nerdy sophomore in high school again just now. Walking in the hallway here, and I'm limping a little bit because I hurt my knee skiing, still healing. And Boomer Esiason, former NFL quarterback, walks by and just looks at me like, oh, you are such a dork.
Oh, did he say that?
He didn't say that. He's being nice. He's made fun of the way I walk normally. And now that I have a limp, I look like just a weirdo walking along. I assume you can see this happening.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. Now, did you, you walked into the studio and your pant leg was up, and these lights in the studio are very bright, but my God, when Perloff showed his white leg, oh my gosh, I'm blinded.
Well, it's not even that. It's not even that. He didn't even get to see. I was walking in. Also, I think he feels like I take too much of the coffee as well, because I'm always going, it's early. We switched to the morning show, and I have 4 cups of coffee during the show, and Boomer thinks I'm just a weird guy. But listen, he's not alone. I think
no, he's definitely not.
I think
alone.
It feels like sometimes this place feels like a locker room, like I'm about to get stuffed into a locker from the big guys here, especially our afternoon hosts. And you were here for this, CJ.
Yeah.
We did a Oklahoma drill. Well, not an Oklahoma drill. We reenacted an NFL pass rush where Zach was rushing and I had to block him. And I ran away like a little kid.
Yeah, you did not block him.
Yeah, but you have to understand, Zach is abnormally strong. Zach, I guess, is calling in. Is that an accurate portrayal of what happened?
Yeah, you were scared right off the jump. The whistle blew. EJ said hike, and I was just shocked because I just stood there looking like a dummy because you were running to pretty much Chris Olivero's office about 50 yards away from where we were. So
it's what smart quarterbacks do, Zach. Smart quarterbacks know when to throw the ball away, when to kill the play and throw it away. That's what I was doing.
Well, I was the quarterback. You wanted me to throw the ball away. You were supposed to be the lineman.
Yes,
I felt like Zach Wilson playing behind the Jets offensive line.
If I'm blocking for you, you want to throw the ball away immediately.
Oh my gosh.
Who was the Eagles corner, Perloff? Was it Bradley Fletcher? They used to say was burnt toast. That's who you kind of look like.
Isaiah Jenkins.
Okay, yeah, him.
Toast Jenkins. Yeah. No, but here's the thing. How much do you weigh, Zach? If you don't mind me asking, because you're in really good shape right now, but you're very tall and you're very, very strong.
Yes, I weighed in the other day at 271.
271. Wow. I weigh 196. So, I mean, if we're going to do a combine here, I'm not in the same position you are. EJ, you think you could block Zach?
No, I would try. I wouldn't be a wimp and just run away, especially when I'm supposed to be protecting a quarterback, protecting your one of your producers, and you just decide, I'm just gonna let him.
Bit of a diva quarterback in that situation, though.
Diva quarterback. Okay, Zach, I have a question for you. So we were talking about this, a potential show bet, which Pete has come up with, and he's given us two options. One of which is to do an Oklahoma drill against a current NFL player, to which Perloff replied, "Can I do it against a kicker?" Now I want to ask you, Zach, how do you think a Oklahoma drill would go with Perloff versus a kicker? Would he even win that? I'm not even convinced he would win that.
Brandon McManus of the Jaguars would kick Perloff's ass. Not even close.
I mean,
but that dude has one of the strongest legs I've ever seen. He would destroy Perloff.
Okay. How about a different kicker, Robbie Gould, who's retired?
He's retired.
Well, come on.
I stood next to him at the Super Bowl. He would still kick your ass.
No, he wouldn't. He's too nice a guy. You know who I know a little bit? Dustin Hopkins, who had a great year. He is way too nice of a guy. He would take it easy on me.
I don't know about that. I think the only one you would have a chance is maybe your lookalike, Rodrigo Blankenship. Maybe that would be it.
I don't think he's in the league anymore. I mean, if we're going into the UFL kickers, then maybe there's a guy I could take. But no, you're right. So, by the way, and Andrew Bogusch is here too. Does anyone else feel judged by Boomer as being physically inferior? Zach, do you ever feel that way? Because you're as big as Boomer.
Well, when I was a whole lot fatter, Boomer told me I couldn't wear shorts around the office because my big white pasty legs were distracting him. So I've been shamed by Boomer a little bit, but it's just part of the locker room. The top players, they have to rag on the rookies a little bit. And at one point, I was a rookie, and since, Perloff, you're not a rookie, but you're just an unfamiliar person to Boomer, being new around here, it's just part of the normal locker room culture here.
Now, Zach, I know you usually fly solo on your show, but I know you've come in and co-hosted with Perloff. Right now, he came in, and tell me this is correct co-host etiquette. He came in from this break, and I know he has a bum knee, and he's been trying to take care of it. But he walks in. His pant leg is about halfway up his thigh, and he's got this big ice bag, and he's trying to find a spot before we come back from the commercial break to kind of rest his leg up. What are we doing here? Is this rookie hazing that I'm dealing with Perloff next to me with this ice in his white leg that I'm seeing? No, again, his pant leg halfway up his thigh.
I don't think that's that bad. I've seen a whole lot worse in that studio, and I know Bogusch has as well, and Pete the Body Bellotti, with who they have to used to sit by for so many years. So it could be worse. You could be sitting next to a shirtless Sean Marash and have his pant leg halfway up. At least it's
Who's that?
True.
He who shall not be named, Pete.
All right, Zach, go get ready for your show, 3 to 6 Eastern, CBS Sports Radio. I am going to try and put on some weight so I can take you in a blocking drill.
If you want to scale this the right way, I would be down. I feel bad throwing EJ in this because EJ was just minding his own business, defending me. I would be fine doing EJ and you 2-on-1 in a blocking drill, if that's what you want to do.
Now, can I illegally chop block? Is that are we on old school rules, or we have to full on engage upper body? Because in that case, I think we're still getting crushed.
You could try. It won't end well for you.
Well, how about if I get Bellotti too? Because I think he's stronger.
Pete has a family. Come on. Pete has a very nice family, and Pete teaches all the youngsters at CW Post. We actually need Pete to be healthy, all right?
Okay.
Well, I'm expensive.
All right, let me think about that, Zach. Let me think about it. How about you could be Peter Schwartz?
Oh, please. That would be so easy.
What are you telling? His son just got a full ride as a long snapper as offensive lineman.
If you didn't know it, just ask him.
his son did. He didn't. And also, if we do something with Peter Schwartz, we'd have to give him like 10,000 things for free. It's too many things that we need to do.
It's up to 20,000
to participate. Yeah. We need an NIL deal.
I'm looking around the room right now. Someone can help here. Ryan Botcher sitting in the producer chair today. Not so much. No.
No, Ryan.
Botcher's too nice of a person.
What about Hot Take Hickey? Can he take you down?
You got to go back to the drawing board here, Perloff.
How about
not someone that's going to weigh you down?
How about Maggie?
That would
She's
actually
aggressive.
be the best suggestion.
Yeah.
Maggie's probably the toughest one around here, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
You give her a margarita, she could definitely kick my ass. No doubt about it.
All right. How about 2-2? Me and EJ versus you and Mike Samter. Now,
I feel better about that.
We'd feel better if you have Samter on your side.
You know what? It would just be like our afternoon show. I would just carry around the dead weight around here.
Oh, there you go. All right, Zach.
Right.
Zach, I'm amazed you're awake. Thanks for calling in, bud.
You got it, guys. Be well. God bless.
Later, Zach.
Bogusch, help us out here.
I got nothing. I just am amazed. What alarm system does Gelb have that at a 6:25 mention on this show, what buzzes in his apartment that he then texts Bilotti to come on the show and talk about himself? It's amazing. He's always awake. He's always listening. He always knows when he's tweeted about, mentioned. It's remarkable. I need to know what kind of system. This is Google Alerts on crack.
He's called a good coworker who actually listens to the other shows.
No. He's been in Puerto Rico at a bachelor party all weekend long. He should not be awake at 6:15.
You want to talk about Margarita Mags?
Right.
Margarita Zach, right?
Yeah, he should not be awake monitoring the network in case someone says Zach or Gelb.
He had a tweet from a golf course where I could almost smell the alcohol coming off my computer screen. It is pretty amazing. Who do you like, Bogusch? Me and EJ versus Zach Gelb in a blocking contest.
Next question.
Not much confidence in your boys.
Team Samter.
All right, let's change the subject. Give us some good headlines.
Another ridiculous stat line for Victor Wembanyama last night, and it came in a win, so it counts under the Perloff guidelines. 31 points, 12 rebounds, 6 blocks, 6 assists. The Spurs 117, the Pacers 105. San Antonio has won 2 whole games in a row.
I think realizing our strength more and more, and having each other's backs, I mean, we want to be great, and every game matters.
Wemby is the third rookie ever to post a 30-point, 10-rebound, 5-block, 5-assist game. The others are David Robinson and Tim Duncan.
Who are those guys?
Don't know.
Barely heard of them.
They also
pretty
sucked.
good, I heard.
Yeah.
Big issue this weekend. I actually talked to some friends about this. You guys gave me such a hard time last week because I said on my drive to San Antonio, I'm going to go through Chicago. You guys made it sound like I was going to Alaska first. A lot of people said that's a logical way to go to Texas. It's just a little bit different.
Who are a lot of people?
Yeah.
Who
a lot of people, a couple friends. My friend Josh, for one.
Are they from Chicago?
Are they in your head?
Are these actually real people?
You're adding 3 hours on a 30-hour trip. Who cares?
But because the first...
Chicago's not east. I'm not going to Newfoundland first and then
First of
going
all,
to
I
Wyoming.
also reject that it's only 3 hours out of the way.
Because it's basically due west of New York and then above Texas. So it makes perfect sense.
But the entire time you're driving towards Chicago, you're basically not going towards San Antonio.
Exactly.
Yes, you are. But San Antonio is west of New York.
Yeah, but almost the entire country is west of New York, and you wouldn't go through Chicago to get to everywhere.
Utah.
Right. You wouldn't go, yeah, exactly. There are certain
But you're
places.
making it sound like the most insane idea. Everything goes through Chicago. Any trip I've ever done, you either fly through Chicago or you drive through Chicago. It's a central point of the entire country.
Not to go to Texas. That's the problem. Is yes, if you're
it's just
going,
a little bit out of the way. It's not
going,
far out of the way. 3 hours on a 30-hour trip. That's barely any difference. That's like 2% different.
It's 3 hours. Where is this 3 hours?
So,
coming
I mean,
from?
It takes 30 hours to get there through Chicago and 27 to get there through Atlanta.
Now, it also was, it was a Google map search in the moment on Thursday or Friday show, so traffic may change things, and it is only a 3-hour difference according to this thing. But if you look at the 2 lines of the route, route. The one to Chicago makes no sense to me. To go straight across the country, hook a left and go south, where the other one is a nice diagonal from New York into Texas. But let me offer you this.
But it's not crazy.
I think it's crazy.
I think it's crazy.
Now, Josh doesn't. We have a person that's done kind of this drive. Amy Lawrence, our overnight host here, she has driven to Texas on more than one occasion because her family lives there. I'll ask her tomorrow morning if she's ever gone through Chicago to get to Houston.
And I guarantee you she's going to say no. And she's going to say it will be dumb. Like, why would I do that? It doesn't, like...
Well, let her call in like Zach Elben.
No, she's has a life. She's moved on. She's doing something
There's no
else.
stake signal for...
I think there's genuine jealousy of this trip in this room from everybody. I think Pete's getting a little jealous. I think EJ's getting a little jealous.
No, my
I think
emotion is
Ryan's a
I'm
nice person
insulted.
and is actually happy for me. I think you guys are mad that I'm turning losing this bet into a positive.
I don't care if you go to Guadalajara, Mexico. Doesn't matter.
No, I think what's happening is you're trying to get more time away from the crew, and as the crew chief, so to speak, the executive producer of the show, I can't allow this. I think you're trying to say, hey, you know what?
3 hours on a 30-hour
If I go to
trip.
Chicago, well, when we first talked about this, we were like, hey, I have to take a day here. I'm gonna take a rest stop here, and like, no, we need you back. Okay, this is not a happy-go-lucky field trip. This is a punishment for you doubting the greatness of Victor Wembanyama. So we're not gonna just allow you to say, I'm just gonna go hang out in the Chi for a couple of days and figure it out. Like, that's what you're doing here.
I don't really need him back.
I don't know. I think we do need him back, Pete. I mean, he's half of the show. The name Perloff is on there.
I don't know.
But I think EJ's right in that this is a punishment. It's not a
Right.
vacation. So all of a sudden it's become, I'm going to do this in October and go see all this college football. We know when the NBA Rookie of the Year will be announced. You should have to be in San Antonio, wherever the ceremony is, on that day in
It's like
May.
May 23rd
something
or
like
something?
that, to say I'm sorry. And in that moment, now you don't get to do this when you want and how you want. You got to be there when the commissioner or whoever is giving him the trophy to go, my bad, Wemby, my bad.
But he doesn't give him the trophy in San Antonio. He gives him wherever the awards is.
That's the one logistical issue, is the location of the
But
thing.
there's going to be some kind of celebration in San Antonio once he wins it. They'll have some kind of fan event, and then you should be there. You should be
I'm
right
fine
there.
with that. Yeah. What's wrong with driving to San Antonio in May? Sounds lovely.
Nothing, but you were making this into your little college football
you're gonna
tour.
say, I'm going to go watch the Red River rivalry, which you're trying to sucker me into that. Like, hey, EJ, you want to come see Texas, Oklahoma? I'm like, oh, sure.
You should have to go through Alaska.
If you're really
There's the punishment.
with Carlos.
Yeah, that should be. If Carlos does something wrong, we should somehow rope him in this. Say, hey, now you got to go with Perloff, and not only do you have to go with Perloff,
Carlos would be good on the music, though.
he's gonna make a stop in Alaska before he gets to Texas, and he'll definitely be out.
All right, more headlines.
The Thunder are back atop the West this morning, a half game better than Denver and Minnesota after a 118-110 win in Phoenix. Yusuf Nurkic had a Suns record 31 rebounds in defeat. He threw in 14 points, but did not take a single free throw.
It's kind of really messed up when you have a 13 offensive rebound and 16 shots having 0 free throws. As hard as I work and I feel like getting fouled, as anybody in the league. And I'm not here saying we lost the game, it is what it is, but it's not really common sense.
And then Draymond Green punched him. Head coach Frank Vogel also complained about the officials last night, saying Kevin Durant got fouled almost every time he touched the ball, but both men did mention the 22 Suns turnovers as a bigger reason for losing. The Knicks won in Cleveland 107-98 and appeared to have avoided catastrophe. Jalen Brunson played 1 minute before suffering a scary left knee injury, but it's only being called a bone bruise right now. X-rays were negative.
Whoa. How is that possible? I saw the injury. It looked like maybe even an Achilles. It was so bad.
I think it was literally almost like an optical illusion because it looks like a non-contact. I thought I watched Derrick Rose all over again.
Yeah.
But when the Cavs broadcast had a good angle where you see his knee got clipped when he jumped.
Yeah.
So what we thought was non-contact actually was a knee-on-knee, bump. And that's what ended up. Now, when you get hit in the right spot, it could feel like you tore your ACL, which is why I think he was so panicked. But it was one of those weird things where it happened so fast, and it was literally a grazing of the knee that you wouldn't see it. So Knicks got very lucky.
Every Knick fan that I know was tweeting some Twitter doctor saying it's going to be okay. And one guy said that this, I forget what the medical term was, but if you get hit on the side of the knee like that, it's like a dead leg. Your whole leg can go numb.
That's happened.
And that's why he like reacted so significantly, like he had gotten shot.
That happened to me. I had a youth game when I was like 12, and I got hit on the side of the knee, and I thought I blew up my knee.
Yeah,
it feels like that when it happens. And I was on the ground for a long time. They had to carry me off the court. It was all the same ordeal. And then I was like, a couple hours later, I was like, oh, I'm fine. And then it was apparently, I think this is this thing that Brunson's going through.
Well, that's good. Now the Knicks can lose fair and square in the second round.
The Carolina Panthers are no longer talking long-term deal with pass rusher Brian Burns. They could still use the franchise tag on him at a cost of $24 million. The tag deadline is tomorrow afternoon. U.S. women's soccer took care of Colombia 3-0 in the Gold Cup semifinals in L.A. Up next is Canada on Wednesday. And USA Today says the Phillies would be interested in a short-term deal with free agent lefty Blake Snell. He and fellow lefty Jordan Montgomery remain unsigned, now deep into spring training. Guys, back to you.
Wow, I forgot about the Phillies dominating the Mets this year and how much joy that's going to bring me.
Oh, and then you're going to remember when they lose in the conference finals again, and you're going to say, oh, actually, no, it doesn't matter that they
playing
lost.
with house money.
It doesn't matter if they lost in the NLCS.
Playing with house money.
Bunch of losers.
You get the Cy Young Award winner, and it doesn't
Still
matter
losers.
if you don't win. Okay. Meanwhile, you're telling me the Falcons can't enjoy a divisional round a win, and you're telling me here that the Phillies, if they get the Cy Young winner, it doesn't matter if they don't go to the World Series.
Haters all over the place. Haters.
Phillies are losers.
All right. Speaking of haters, this really surprises me. Caitlin Clark breaks the scoring record for NCAA on Sunday. Or sorry, was it Saturday or Sunday?
It was yesterday.
Yeah,
it was yesterday.
Yeah.
There are so many people out there who do not buy this record and say it's false. We'll get to that next, right here on Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining.
Just be baby. Why can't baby just be baby? Why can't baby just be baby? Why can't baby just be baby? Why can't baby just be baby?
15 seconds.
That's the other problem. She'll figure Trust me, I fantasize a lot about this. And how do you...
Break ends in 5 seconds.
Back on Maggie and Perloff. EJ sitting in for Maggie today. All right, EJ, I understand we have potential breaking news, and it is Taylor Swift adjacent, I will say.
A little bit of a stretch. A little bit of a stretch there, but sure. So Jason Kelce tweeted just 4 minutes ago, "No cake videos this year. I have come to a decision and will address it at a press conference this afternoon." And it's weird. His Twitter account doesn't have his actual picture on it, so I was a little confused whether or not this actually was his account, but Mike Garafolo and several other reputable NFL reporters are picking up that this is indeed Jason Kelce, so I assume this is him. He says the decision is coming this afternoon. If you're doing a press conference, I can't imagine it means you're coming back.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer because he's the key to the tush push because he gets so low, the Eagles center.
Yeah.
I wonder what happens to the tush push. They said they're not going to change the rule, but I don't know if the next guy can execute it as well. I say Jason Kelce. What's your instinct? Hall of Famer or no Hall of Famer?
Hall of Famer, without doubt. I mean, when you know the name of a center, I know he got a little more famous this year because of the Taylor Swift stuff and his brother. But people knew Jason Kelce was even before this season. It was because of how stellar he was at that position for so long. Locker room leader. And that's a big loss for the Eagles. We talked earlier about the Cowboys and our expectations for them this year, given Jerry's kind of haphazardness when it comes to addressing the Dak Prescott contract situation. This is another reason why I say that's not a big deal because the Eagles are clearly taking a step back.
Ooh, I don't know if they can't take a big. They lost 4 of the last 5 games. If they can fix their secondary, I don't know how big a step back it'll be.
Well, you're going to lose your center, who's an All-Pro and who's a Hall of Famer.
But they've been drafting.
A big step.
They've drafted a couple guys who can fill in there. You're right. Leadership-wise, this is an issue.
Yeah,
the Eagles were a mess at the end of last year, even with Kelce. To be fair.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm not sure if there is a big step back. All right, yesterday, Caitlin Clark, Iowa's playing Ohio State, sets the all-time NCAA record for scoring, passes Pete Maravich. Now, I tweeted congratulations like a lot of people did.
Yeah.
It was a little anticlimactic. She didn't hit a deep 3. She got 2 foul shots to set the record.
Yep.
I got so many tweets back saying that it doesn't count. Men's basketball is a different sport. He played at a different time. It was a different size ball. There was no three-point line, on and on and on. I understand. Those are all very valid arguments, and it does make sense. But I felt like there's this energy against Caitlin Clark and sort of felt like a little anti-women's basketball, but just all of a sudden there are all these Pete Maravich fans. I was a little surprised by the negativity.
Well, it's funny when we talk about qualifying what's real and what isn't. And look, Pete Maravich did it in 3 years. So that's another thing that people will say as well. Caitlin Clark, of course, had 4 seasons. But Pistol Pete played in an era where there wasn't widespread integration. Like he played in the SEC where perhaps there was almost no integration at that point in time. So we talk about the legitimacy of records. We got to talk about that. And like you talk about Caitlin Clark, women's basketball, men's basketball. At the end of the day, it's putting the ball in the hoop, right? Like I don't know how this is that much different than what Pistol Pete did, other than some records with 3-pointers and things like that. But I don't know. We don't do that for other records. Like in the NFL, we've been keeping all of the single season records, even though the NFL schedule has changed from 12 to 14
that's
to
true.
16 to 17. Major League Baseball, of course, there was a time when Roger Maris, when he hit the home run record, they wanted to put an asterisk on it because he said that he did it in more games than Babe Ruth. Well, we don't walk around and say Roger Maris has an asterisk. In fact, we want to put asterisks on other guys who did it, in the same amount of games, but we think people cheated. So this is bogus, people complaining about Caitlin Clark. She has the most points in all of college basketball in the history of the game. I know Lynette Woodard is the person we were talking about as well. But like I don't know what the big fuss is about this.
So Pete Maravich, by the way, crazy, 44 points a game, 14-12 as a freshman, 13-13 as a sophomore, then 22-10 as a junior. Sorry, sophomore, junior, senior, because you couldn't play as a freshman back then. So he was scoring 44 points a game, and they were not winning. How bad were the dudes around him? So he had the ultimate green light.
His dad was his coach.
Yeah.
Like, his dad was the head coach. So
he is awesome, by the way.
Prince Pete's one of my all-time favorite basketball players, so it's no disrespect to him. But again, we're going to start qualifying what makes a record and what doesn't. I mean, okay, let's talk about everything. Let's talk about how many games they didn't win.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fact that there were no black players they were playing against. Let's talk about his dad was the coach, so he got to shoot all the time. Like, there are other things. If we can play this game with every single record, there's no point in doing it with Caitlin as well.
It's funny. Caitlin Clark, they're number 6 now. If they win the tournament or even come close, it's like a movie. Like, you couldn't write this. But the reality is, I watched South Carolina, who's undefeated, play Tennessee. They're probably going to win it all. I do not see this Caitlin. Last year, the Red Sea parted so Iowa could get to the final game. This year it's going to be really tough. Would it be anticlimactic if, say, they lost in the Elite Eight or did not even make the Final Four? Because right now, Caitlin Clark is the face of the sport. In fact, she's one of the biggest faces in all of sports. Yeah. So it's interesting to me. If I'm a NCAA women's official, I'm giving Iowa some calls because they need her to advance to really complete this story.
I mean, there's as much parity in women's college basketball than I can remember. I mean, South Carolina's undefeated and they've been the best team by far. But after that, Ohio State, Texas, Stanford, Virginia Tech has kind of come out of nowhere. Iowa. We talk about stars in college basketball. How about Juju Watkins of USC, a freshman, putting up huge numbers. UCLA has had a remarkable season. Like, it is not, and we forget about LSU, the defending champs, who will definitely have something to say about the tournament as well. So this is going to be a wide open race to the point where, would it be anticlimactic? Yes, if they don't get to a Final Four or a national championship. But I can't sit here and say that has to be the expectation because there's too many good players, too many good teams out there.
Absolutely. One thing, though, I do think, do not denigrate Caitlin Clark by comparing to Pete Merritt. Let's just celebrate this record. It's an incredible achievement. And the way she plays is amazing, too, because everyone knows that she has this pressure to score, and she still does it. So I'm also honing down on the men's field.
Yeah.
Be careful. This year's bracket, and we every year we do one, the Perloff's longtime follower of the show, Nick in Texas, puts out a bracket.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, EJ, I'm studying. I am starting to get a feel for this field.
For the field.
I came in second to last year. Maggie was last. But I'm starting to really, I think, get an understanding of this bracket. And now that it's March, I mean, we're going to be filling these out soon.
Yeah.
Every year, college basketball, men's college basketball, you follow it later and later. So I'm well versed in Tennessee.
Okay.
I know everyone knows Purdue.
Yeah.
My Houston Cougars look really tough.
Excellent defensively.
And then we both watched UConn just stomp Seton Hall yesterday. So it feels like we have at least 4 really good teams. Last year it was wild. You had Miami, Florida Atlantic, San Diego State. This year I think it's going to be the powers that are back, and I'm winning the bracket. I'm going to put it right out there now. I'm going to kill whoever. Pete, I don't know if you're good at brackets. I feel like I'm going to beat you this year. EJ, I'm going to beat you. Ryan, you're welcome to be in our bracket. You're just going to lose.
I don't think you're beating me in the bracket challenge. I'm sorry. I don't think so.
Why not?
Because I know where your loyalties lie, and I know where your heart has been.
Whatever.
Whatever.
You're the guy who's saying, watch out, Gonzaga, my team is going to the Final Four last night. You said that on the phone to me.
I didn't say Final Four. I said that they're very dangerous. And did you watch them against St. Mary's? Gonzaga, they're a team that's an older team that took a lot of time to gel because they've had some transfers, but they look great. And I do agree. I don't think we will see so much of the random teams in the Final Four this year that we had last year. I think you'll see more of the teams that we are used to seeing. I think the problem, though, is there's really no discernible difference from 1 to, like, I can go deep as maybe 10. Like, you're talking about, is Houston that much better than Iowa State? Actually, watch Iowa State beat Houston at home. Is Purdue that much better than North Carolina? North Carolina has great size. They have great shooting. They have a great point guard in RJ Davis. Like, there's no discernible difference. Some of these teams are going to be 1 seeds, and some of these teams are going to be 3 seeds. So that's what scares me more. It's trying to pick who are these teams that are going to get out of this in the end, and who are these teams that actually may hit on some landmines and go out early, because that's going to happen. That happens every year. I think in past years it was a little bit easier to figure out because they were clear, dominant, juggernaut kind of teams. I think right now none of these teams are all that discernible, except UConn. UConn, I think, is playing on a level above anybody else. That's a team I think that you could just pencil in for the Final Four and you'll be good. Everyone else, toss some names in the hat and pick them out.
Watch out for my Cougs. Pete, what's your bracket history? Are you usually pretty good at this, or do you struggle?
I'm mediocre.
Yeah. I mean, most of us are.
In the middle. I went far with some of those Patino Louisville teams. So, but that's really been the crux of it.
Okay, I'm an Izzo Michigan State. The only time I've ever won is Michigan State because I immediately pencil them in.
Only one time I think I picked Michigan State to win a national championship, and they lost in the first round. And think of all the years that they've gone to the Final Four, even when people didn't expect them to. And in 1 year, I was like, you know what? This is the year. I always doubt Michigan State because they don't have a great offense. They're always kind of a 3 yards in the cloud dust kind of basketball team, as crazy as it sounds, because he coaches like a football coach. I picked them out in the first round. So I was like, I'm not doing it again. I'll just lose to Michigan State. And if they beat me on a bracket challenge, so be it.
All right, up next, the one topic Maggie actually wanted to be here for today. She'll be back tomorrow. But this is, I think, the most surprising nugget to come out of the NFL scouting combine. Next on Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's destined to get knocked out by Jake Paul. She's destined to film it. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. Maggie is off today, lounging in the sun somewhere while EJ Stewart and I hold down the fort. She'll be back tomorrow. But it's funny, I did text with her. There was one NFL headline that came out of the scouting combine that I think upset her. I can't tell because if it's not Buffalo Bills related, she doesn't get as emotionally involved. But this headline actually did get her emotionally involved. And it was during Saturday. It was a quarterback workout that you watch religiously, EJ. You got to watch the quarterbacks and wide receivers. And then all of a sudden, Daniel Jeremiah, who does an amazing job for the NFL Network, dropped this tidbit.
You run into people, you talk to people, you hear, theories and rumors and, hey, look out for this, look out for that. I mean, we've all assumed that Baker just goes right back to Tampa. I had somebody say, I wouldn't, don't sleep on the New England Patriots. For being in the Baker. And if the New England Patriots are in the Baker business, then the number 3 pick is up for sale. And now the dominoes start going and we can really have some fun.
What?
Yeah. So there's some more to this. The new Patriots GM, Elliot Wolf, apparently loved Baker Mayfield. I think he was in Green Bay at the time. This is Ron Wolf's son, who looks like a really promising GM. Used to love him. There's a connection. Alonzo Highsmith's in that front office who has a Baker connection. And the new OC, Alex Van Pelt, has worked with Baker as well or has a connection to Baker. So there are a lot of connections. To me, this doesn't match up time-wise at all because Baker, it's not old, but he's an older veteran quarterback who you'd think would join a team that's ready to win. I don't see that at all in New England.
I don't see why Baker would want to go there. I could see why the Pats would say Baker makes sense for us here because we actually talked about this last week, and we talked about if the Pats are going to be this doormat, why did they just bring back Bill Belichick? And I said, well, maybe because they want to be able to say, hey, we have a new rookie coach in, we have a new regime coming in, you got to give us some time. Well, you're probably going to have to buy some time given how bad this team is. You're going to need a year or two to actually figure this thing out. So this looks like a bridge quarterback scenario if I've ever seen one, right?
Right, but he's way too expensive for a bridge. That's the problem.
I mean, but they have a lot of money, and as Gerard Mayo said, they have quote unquote money to burn, which he actually pulled back because he said that probably wasn't the smartest thing for him to say, especially the concept of burning money. You want to actually spend money wisely, not just throw it away. But he said that though, so
they won 6 Super Bowls by acting the exact opposite way of that and being incredibly conservative fiscally.
Right. But what we've seen in recent years, where the talent has been declining on that roster, they have not addressed it aggressively enough in free agency. They've made some moves. But there was really one free agency where they got 2 tight ends. It's like, well, this is how you're going to change the roster. But most of these offseasons, they've been one of the teams that spent the least amount of money in free agency. So if you're the Patriots, I totally see this because you could draft, you can sign a guy like Baker Mayfield, and then you could draft your future quarterback. And maybe it's not one of these guys at number 3, but maybe you trade back in this draft and you get one of these guys later, like you were talking about, like a Bo Nix or like a Michael Penix, and you say, okay, that guy is going to be our development guy, and then Baker is out there to play next season.
I just think you're going to have to pay a lot because there's a market for Baker. Obviously, returning to Tampa Bay makes sense. There's rumors Atlanta might be interested. Minnesota, if Kirk Cousins goes elsewhere. So you might have to get up to the 40 number, which is way too much for a bridge. A bridge should be $10 million, like Trubisky was with Kenny Pickett or my guy Andy Dalton was with Bryce Young. But you should not be paying $40 million. That's an all-in move.
But I think that the times have changed. I don't think that we're looking at bridge quarterbacks going for that anymore. Because I think, realistically, if you're getting a guy like Mitchell Trubisky, no one actually believes that guy's going to start. Like, the kind of guys you're going to grab to be your starting quarterback next season are guys that are going to be worth $30 million. That's just the going rate for quarterbacks now. So Baker Mayfield, looking at what his numbers were and looking at what he did last season, like, could you sign him for 3 years, $75 million? I don't think that's crazy. And then,
I think he's going to be worth more. I think it's closer to Daniel Jones at the least 2 years, $80 million, not 3 years, 75. If Daniel Jones is getting
Baker
80, then Baker Mayfield coming off last year. But don't people look at the
Daniel Jones money and say that was a bad investment? Like, at what point, right, so at what point doesn't the market correct itself, right? Like, don't you say, hey, look, we saw what happened there. Kind of like what happened with Deshaun Watson. Like, people saw what happened with Deshaun Watson and said, even though it was stupid, they said, we're not going to ever do that again. Maybe in part because it was other ulterior motives at play. But they said, we're not going to do that again. So sorry, Lamar Jackson. We're not going to give you a fully guaranteed contract because someone else did. I think Baker Mayfield's going to go into this offseason. He will have bidders, but I don't think he's going to have a team say, hey, we're just going to give you $40 million a year for however many years and say, all right, we're done with it. We move on. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think that you may be able to get him at a more reasonable number because as well as he played last season, we know wherever he goes, if it's not going to be in Tampa, they ain't going to have Mike Evans. So you're going to expect those numbers to come down a little bit. So you got to project the kind of player you're getting for the roster you have. He ain't throwing for 4,000 yards for the Patriots.
Forget not having Mike Evans. You're not going to have Chris Godwin either.
Right.
You're not going to have, I thought Kate Otten came on at tight end at the end of last year. You're not going to have anything in New England. There was nobody to throw the ball. And so from the Baker standpoint, it's interesting. I don't think New England is great. He might know the coaches, and that's something. But I would even take less to go to Tampa Bay if I was him.
Would too.
Because you're in the NFC South. I mean, the AFC East, we expected them to be loaded last year. They're still going to be, I think, 3 playoff caliber teams, definitely the Bills and the Dolphins and maybe the Jets if Aaron Rodgers is back. That's just a tough spot. So I don't see that working at all. Another interesting spot, what about Baker for the Raiders?
I like the Raiders fit probably the best, honestly.
Really? I like the Bucs the best. You think the Raiders is better? Are you not counting the Bucs as
I was kind of taking the Bucs out of it. I mean, I think if all things are equally, she should probably go back to Tampa. There's familiarity there.
Yeah.
But I like the Raiders fit a lot. I think that his personality, his attitude matches the culture that Antonio Pierce is trying to build. He would have, we talk about not having Mike Evans, having Devontae Adams is pretty good. Like, maybe even better than Mike Evans. So he'd have a number one receiver there. The division is a weird one because you're not ever usurping the Chiefs. But that number 2 spot we saw last season is kind of up for grabs. I mean, we don't know what the Chargers are going to be at. Where there's a lot of hope with Jim Harbaugh. They come in and turn it around quickly. But they're another team that's going to have to really retool. Do they trade Keenan Allen? Do they get rid of Khalil Mack? Do they get rid of Bosa? Like, they had a bunch of guys they may move on from. And forget about the Broncos. Again, I think they're tanking for Shador. So that's a division he can come in and probably compete and win some games there. So I don't hate the Raiders fit. If I was looking at a team outside of where he's at with Tampa, Raiders, Vikings, those would be the 2 teams I'm looking at. If Kirk Cousins really does get wandering eye and say, hey, I'll go somewhere else, he can go to Minnesota. He can play with a guy, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, a really great rookie season. Right. You got something there. I don't know why you want to go to New England. That seems a little weird to me. But again, if I'm the Patriots, this would be a great way to buy you some time and say, hey, we're trying to do something. We're not going to just, pack it in and say, hey, this season doesn't mean anything. Like, give the fans some reason to buy in, some reason to watch. And even if you're not trading out of that number 3, maybe you take that number 3 pick and maybe it is Marvin Harrison Jr. Now you got another stud to build around while you try to figure out the quarterback situation.
Robert Kraft is 82.
Yep.
They just had a documentary that came out. We had the director on. It seemed like a project to get him to the Hall of Fame, which I think he will get in eventually. But Baker Mayfield's not winning a Super Bowl. Baker Mayfield might bring you back to respectability, but you got to look at a rookie quarterback at number 3. The way to win a Super Bowl in the NFL is get a stud rookie quarterback, have him on a cost control situation, and build around him. You got to take Drake May at number 3. I assume I'm kind of leaning Jaden Daniels, number 2 to Washington. Okay. Drake May at number 3. Yes, he's going to struggle there.
Yeah.
And I did make the case, I think last week, that he could be like Bryce Young in Carolina. No receivers, and it might not work out. But you cannot go mid-level free agent quarterback. That is just the wrong team for that. You have to take a big swing here. Otherwise, what is the ceiling? We keep talking about ceilings on the show. Where are the Patriots going with Baker Mayfield? What is the best-case scenario? To me, it is not Super Bowl.
I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not even sure if it's playoffs for them. But what I will say is the best-case scenario is you get back to a level of respectability and you do start playing more confident football, because there was something in New England last year that just looked broken. Like they looked like a college team sometimes watching them play. Just
terrible.
How poorly the coach they were, how poorly fundamentally sound they were. Like they were a bad football team all around. And they are someone that definitely needs a culture change and a culture shock. So bring in a quarterback who's had some success, who's been to the playoffs, who's won games in the playoffs, and he can start to reset the culture while you figure the rest out. And this is not a team where we say, hey, like you mentioned before, like this is a team with a lot of issues. It's not a team we say, okay, we just drop in a rookie quarterback and it's all said and done. We'll be good. As Maggie says, drop in, stir the mix. Like this is not that situation. Like you need to get a lot of pieces. So maybe I say, hey, we got some really great draft position here. Let's use that as a way to really build this roster around whoever our future quarterback's going to be. Because as we've seen now, you don't have to draft a quarterback to get your franchise quarterback. Guys are becoming more available via trade. Some guys are even becoming available via free agency, as we see now with Kirk Cousins. Like, it used to be impossible to get a guy, outside of getting the draft. Like, no quarterbacks ever came available. That's not really the case now. So the Patriots may look at this and say, hey, we'll try out Baker Mayfield for a couple of years. Maybe we'll get a guy in the second round. And if that guy works out, we can put him in and do a Jordan Love situation when he's ready to go. Or we'll just take a different guy 3 or 4 years from now when this thing flames out. I think that I see the logic in it. It's not something I would do, but I don't think it's crazy.
All right, give us a call, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Do you think Baker Mayfield works with the Patriots? I say definitely not. I think EJ has better homes for Baker as well. Okay, before we break, I just want to give you one good nugget to make you feel good about yourself, EJ.
Good.
You're a diehard Jets fan.
Yes.
Peter Schrager, NFL Network, Good Morning Football, friend of the show, just tweeted that he expects this to be one of the greatest offensive line draft classes ever. Maybe 12 offensive linemen taken on day one. So that means even a team like the New York Jets, who can't seem to get out of their own way when it comes to drafting left tackles, might get a good one. Are you excited to add? I mean, it's got to be 2 offensive linemen for the Jets, right? I feel like every team needs left tackle or right tackle. It's a constant need, all 32 teams. This is exciting. I think a lot of fan bases are going to like this.
Well, it's great news it's great news for me on 2 fronts. Number one, great for the Jets because it's a team that so badly needs offensive line help. Number 2, also great because for our show bet that is brewing, 12 offensive linemen go in the first round. Guess what? It ain't going to be a lot of quarterbacks going in the first round.
I know.
So get into that 5 or 6 number that you need to get to that over a 4.5. Good luck with that if there's 12 offensive linemen going that high.
All right. There are a lot of dominoes left to fall. NFL free agency starts on March 12th. A big one might have just fallen. Interesting name, EJ, that I don't think either you or I expected to happen today, but it's happening. We'll take a break. I'm going to tease that and come back next with a very, very surprising move in the NFL.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Unexpected breaking news on the Monday after the Combine. Adam Schefter just tweeted, before free agency begins next week, The Buccaneers and 5-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Mike Evans reached agreement on a 2-year, $52 million deal that includes $35 million guaranteed per his agent. Interesting. Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. Maggie off today. EJ sitting in. What's your initial reaction to this number? 2-year, $52 million for Mike Evans.
A little surprised by 2 years.
Me too.
Like I'm not saying he's a young player, but he's not someone I think is on the verge of retirement anytime soon. So I would have thought he could have got like a 4-year deal. So 2-year commitment, very short. That surprised me a little bit. But to be honest, I see this deal and I see a guy who says, hey, I want to play these last 2 seasons and maybe I retire after that. But if I can still play and there's a situation that is great for me, I may go carpet bag somewhere and win a championship.
Yeah, he's 30, which for wide receiver is, I always say, the magic age. You don't want to be on the other side of 30 unless your name is Jerry Rice. So Mike Evans is a pure speed guy. Even last year, I saw he was out running cornerbacks. He doesn't seem like he's the kind of guy who will age well to me necessarily. He's big, but at 32, you're really not going to be burning guys the same way you were at 25.
No, definitely not. So his the formative years of his career and his prime will be spent in Tampa. Wherever he goes after this, if he does continue to play, you're getting a diminished player. And I think that's great for the Buccaneer fans that you have a guy that you can, how many guys you have play so long in their career with just one team. It's so rare now.
Yeah.
I know one thing, the big winners of this deal are all of these top receivers in this draft, because there's a guy who maybe would have been a piece for the Jets, let's say, or some of these other teams that maybe say, hey, we're one receiver away from being really special, who now will say, okay, well, now that Mike Evans is off the board, let's go take a flyer on one of these rookies. So if you're any of these guys that was running at the Combine, or even if you didn't run at the Combine, if you're Neighbors or Harrison, this is a good day for you that Mike Evans went back to Tampa.
Haven't the Jets drafted a bunch of wide receivers, though?
Garrett Wilson.
Denzel Mims.
Mims was a while ago, though. Like, they haven't drafted a guy that they really like very high in a long time. I mean, Garrett Wilson was the guy, and after that, it was
10.
Mims.
Yeah.
And that was it. And Mims was a second-round pick.
I have this argument with Maggie a lot. I feel like wide receiver is becoming the new running back in the sense that you can go cheap in the draft. I think it's because 7-on-7 is so prolific right now that everybody can catch the ball at 1,000,000 miles an hour. We talked about Pete Schrager saying there's going to be more offensive linemen than ever before in this draft. The wide receiver class, every year, it's better and better and better. And the funny thing, too, is the second rounders are often better than the first rounders, which to me says the NFL has trouble evaluating these guys. Bit of a crapshoot. Tampa Bay going the safe route with Mike Evans. But I agree with you. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to do really well at wide receiver, starting with whoever gets Marvin Harrison, to me, is so far and away the number one wide receiver. He didn't do anything this Combine. There's rumors that Malik Neighbors out of LSU might go higher. I don't buy it, but I think you're dead right. I think you're going to get 5 to 10 guys who are immediately productive. Look, Puka Nacua was a 5th-round pick and had 1,600 receiving yards for the Rams. So to me, this is a smart move by Tampa Bay. You want to keep Mike Evans in-house, but it doesn't feel like a game changer or a league changer to me. They'll be in contention for the NFC South, probably bring back Baker Mayfield. I am very curious what happens. I think you're dead on, EJ. I think the draft wide receivers are going to change the shape of the league this year. Someone's going to get Marvin Harrison. Yep. Someone's going to get Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas out of LSU. Someone's going to get Rome Odunze, who might be falling a little bit. Yeah. I think he's immediately productive. So we're going to see a whole new class of very productive wide receivers immediately.
And I think what's happening, too, when we talk about the fact that second-round guys in some ways have been the more productive guys. In some ways, we've had guys going later in the first round that have been better than guys that were early in the first round. CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, guys that come to mind. Remember, though, I think what ended up maybe happening right now is you're seeing the draft evaluation kind of shift because we've seen so many of these second-round guys be so good. And they may say, well, maybe we're missing something, and we're only maybe slotting 2 or 3 guys as first-round grades when, in fact, there are first-round grades out there in the 2nd, 3rd, 5th round, like Puka Nacua, that we're missing. And I wonder at what point in time does that correct itself, where maybe we do see a shift go back where you don't see as many receivers? Because I was looking at a big board yesterday after that Xavier Worthy 40 time and seeing all the guys that were slated to be first-round picks. I saw 9 names at receiver, which seems just impossible even just 3 years ago, that you have 9 receivers in one class go in the first round. But I think teams have seen so many valuable guys get picked late that now they're saying, hey, maybe we can't wait. Like, maybe we need to say, hey, if there's a guy who we think is a second-round pick but actually is a star, we need to get him in the first round, and maybe that's what we're seeing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there were a couple standout numbers from the combine, not just Xavier Worthy's all-time record 40. Ladd McConkey ran a 4.39 out of the productive receiver out of Georgia. People, I think he might get in the first round now. Now, Keon Coleman, Florida State wide receiver, ran a ridiculously slow 40. Was it 4.6?
Yeah, 4.64.
But then they put the chips in the guys now. He had the fastest gauntlet drill, that drill where the wide receiver catches the ball immediately, drops and turns around, catches another one. So his game speed is really fast, and he was really productive, wins every 50-50 ball. I don't think he drops as much because of that slow 40. And I remind people, Larry Fitzgerald and Jerry Rice ran slow 40s. One more guy, the other Texas receiver, A.D. Mitchell. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. 6'4", can run, can do everything, can jump. I think he goes in the first round. So I think this is going to be a huge wide receiver class, which gets back to our bet. If there's six wide receivers go and 12 offensive linemen go, that's 18. Then we haven't even talked about defense.
We haven't talked about defensive players at all.
Yeah. So our EJ and I have a new bet, a show bet. 4.5 quarterbacks is the over-under. If it's 4 or less, EJ wins. If it's 5 or more, I win. And the penalty is Pipilotti gets to put a whistle around his neck and make us run gassers on a local field.
Which I feel like he'd take very odd joy in doing.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how many gassers. Is it every day for a week, or how does this work?
Yeah, he said every day. It was for a week. And he was suggesting doing something that you do in basketball where you run to the 10 and go back. I understand gassers as you're just running sprints. Like you're just running 50 yards or 100 yards, and you take a blow for a minute, and then you just do it again. So I don't know how many we have to do.
Well, here's the thing. How many do we get through without injuring ourselves? 2 at most? What's the over-under on that?
That's probably 1.
yeah, or half of 1. I mean, do we get to 1?
You might get to 1. Might get a good burst of energy, but we'll leave that open to interpretation. Depend upon how I'm feeling that day.
Now we do need to figure out like where this is, time of day, because we're doing this during the summer. We can't do this at like noon when it's like 90 degrees. So
yes, we can.
Wait, no, like that becomes a health hazard at that point. Like it should be something done maybe right after the show. Our show ends 10 p.m. Eastern. So at that point, maybe it's still in the 80s or 70s during the summer.
All right.
But like I'm not running at high noon. 95-degree weather. That's not happening.
No heat waves. No.
No. I'm old school. I want 2 days and 100 degrees. That's how you win football games, like the Junction Boys. Give me that.
I'm not trying to win football games. I'm trying to win good radio shows.
Same difference.
I don't know if running gassers at night at 95-degree weather is going to help us at all, Perloff.
It's not us. I'm winning this bet. Somebody is going to do something silly.
Well, not again. If there's going to be 12 offensive linemen and 6 wide receivers going in the first round.
Well, the 3 quarterbacks are going. Caleb, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels. Everything points to J.J. McCarthy at 4. Then all I need is either a Penix or a Nix, one of the X's, and I'm good.
I think you're right, but I think the Penix and Nix thing is very dicey.
Why? Those guys were incredible college quarterbacks. What did I watch last year?
Because
I didn't watch Drake May dominate. I watched Bo Nix and Michael Penix dominate.
But you watch guys who were older, guys who had transferred to different schools.
They're 23. They're not 45 years old.
No, but they're playing against guys who are a lot younger than them. And there are guys who I watched Bo Nix play football for a long time, and he was very average. And then last year, all of a sudden, he was this superstar. And look, he improved. And every player can improve. That's fine. But I do have to take some with a grain of salt, him throwing for 45 touchdowns and 3 picks and saying, hey, that's not the guy I saw for 4 years playing college football before then. And then with Michael Penix, I think there's a health thing where I think there are teams that are going to look at this and say, hey, we're investing a first-round pick, which is like gold in the NFL. Are we really going to invest a first-round pick in a guy with 2 torn ACLs? That's a major risk. I love the way he throws the ball. I think a lot of NFL teams will. But an older guy plus injury history, that's got to scare some teams.
Bo Nix is fine as long as he never has to play Georgia, because Georgia just destroyed him. And the Eagles have a lot of Georgia players. That's probably not a great matchup.
Stay out of NFC East then.
I don't know why. I just think he's really good. I think he could go. There's a lot of people think Denver's looking at him at number 12, and that seems like a good fit with Sean Payton.
But how much, as good as Bo Nix, and I'm not even say good, as great as he was last year, I'm going to put respect on his name. How much of that do you think is the Oregon offense? Because they run a very unique, very fast-paced offense. A lot of it is short throws. We know he can throw the ball. He's got a great arm, but they weren't asking him to really push the ball down the field quite as much. those numbers, as great as they looked, they're a little video gamey. And it makes me wonder how real it is when we compare it to running NFL-style schemes against NFL caliber athletes on defense.
Come on. I mean, what quarterback is going to fit that need? I mean, all the quarterbacks have the same thing. You're not going to be able to draft. We said the same thing about C.J. Stroud because he was Ryan Day's offense, and look what happened with him. This is really hard to separate the college offense at this point. You could be easily making a mistake and saying, well, he did it at Oregon and can't do it in the NFL. I think we did a little bit of that with Stroud.
I mean, maybe you could say that about maybe Penix a little bit. He also kind of runs a funky offense, but I saw him put up numbers in Indiana. I don't say that about Caleb Williams. I don't say that at all.
Wow.
I don't say that about Jaden Daniels. I don't look at Brian
Williams.
I don't look at Brian Kelly's offense and say, "Oh, this was some gimmick."
That was all. That was all Jaden Daniels.
So, I think it's totally different when we talk about those guys.
You could say it about Caleb because Lincoln Riley obviously produces number 1 overall picks. That's his thing. But Caleb Williams was so physically talented.
But it's just something about, and I don't want to bang on Oregon so much because I got fooled. I thought that Justin Herbert maybe wasn't so great because of it's a different coaching staff.
Regime. Yeah,
I know, but still, that Oregon green makes you think certain things, and a lot of people were surprised to see how well Justin Herbert could adjust to the NFL and also push the ball down the field.
Unbelievable.
It was very surprising to a lot of folks. So I don't want to. So I could be wrong again about Bo Nix. The difference though is I only saw Justin Herbert play in one place. So there, I had question marks. With Bo Nix, I saw him play somewhere else where they weren't running that Oregon offense, and he didn't look like that.
It's different, though. Obviously, you can't compare Justin Herbert and Bo Nix. Also, Herbert is big, but I think people forget Bo Nix was an athlete first and a quarterback second.
Yeah.
Because I heard someone say, well, he's a good quarterback, but he's not as athletic as the other guys. I saw him on Saturday. I'm like, ooh, I forgot. Bo Nix can move.
Yes.
All right, let's go to headlines. Andrew Bogusch, what do you got, bud?
Guys, we were told right after the Super Bowl that Jason Kelce was retiring. Then Jason and Travis told us that wasn't the case yet. Now it feels like Jason's retiring. The Eagles center tweeting last hour he will discuss his playing future at 1 Eastern this afternoon. As you guys have already mentioned, the Bucs and Mike Evans reportedly staying together. A 2-year deal reportedly includes $35 million guaranteed dollars. And the Niners over the weekend promoted our friend Nick Sorensen to defensive coordinator, and they hired Brandon Staley as associate head coach. But ESPN says before doing all of that, San Francisco tried to lure Steve Spagnuolo away from the Chiefs. Spag's contract expired after the Super Bowl. He could have gone anywhere. He has since signed an extension with KC.
Why is Nick Sorensen our friend?
Because we couldn't figure out last week if he was the former Chiefs safety.
Right. We didn't even know if it was Daniel Sorensen or Nick Sorensen, and I did a deep dive. They apparently are really not related.
Not even a little
what
bit.
are the odds?
I tried to tell you that. You just didn't take me at face value.
It didn't make any sense, but okay.
The Thunder built a 24-point lead last night in Phoenix. It turned into a 2-point hole in the fourth. Then they won 118-110. Head coach Mark Daigneault didn't mind the roller coaster ride.
Our team's always had great resilience, though. I have great respect for our guys as competitors. I thought our resilience was on display tonight. Our poise was on display in the fourth. They did a great job.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 35 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists. Chet Holmgren's stat line doesn't matter. The win puts OKC back atop the Western Conference, a half game clear of Minnesota and Denver.
Why are you so against Perloff the Thunder this year?
I'm not against them. I think they're a lot of fun. I just think you could only gonna see them in 6 playoff games before they lose. Them and Minnesota, the 1 and 2 seed in the West, no chance.
Why? They have one of the best guards in the NBA. They have one of the best young teams. They're athletic. Chet Holmgren, we don't want to talk about his stats because we don't want to boost his Rookie of the Year candidacy, but he's a very good player.
It's just youth. I think youth does not work in the NBA playoffs. And I think the Nuggets, the Warriors, the Lakers, the Suns, the Mavericks, all those teams can knock them out. And I think in a couple years they're going to be unbelievable. In fact, I would like them for a title, but not right now.
I'm curious what you think, Bogusch, because I when I look at this playoff picture in the West, we're talking about youth versus Perloff saying experience. I'm thinking it's old guys. At what point does the guard change? It's funny. I love going through a basketball reference page and seeing what happened to the Pistons of the 90s. They just got old. What happened to the Celtics of the 80s? They just got old. At a certain point, teams are going to usurp them and pass them up. is this the year? It feels like the West, there's a change of the guard that maybe other folks aren't ready to jump on the bandwagon with yet.
Well, I mean, I don't know about changing the guard because the Nuggets and I guess the Clippers are not new, but like we have to stop talking about the Lakers and the Warriors for a little bit. We joked about this at the end of last week. We thought they were playing well, and they stayed 9th and 10th in the West, and then the Warriors were completely embarrassed yesterday by the Celtics. So you can talk
that game was way closer than the 140-88 final score. That could have easily been 140-96.
So like you can say that the Thunder, I understand your points about the Thunder, and you have the historical note of ball dominant guards like SGA. Like that's not who always leads teams to the end. But I don't think the pool of teams that could knock them off should include the Warriors and the Lakers at this point.
But last year, the Lakers were a play-in team and made it to the conference finals. That's what is on my mind. And also, they still have a lot of talent. I mean, if Anthony Davis can just show up when it matters, then they could be dangerous.
And look, that Lakers run was great, and they deserve a lot of credit. But at what point do we say, just like you want to poo-poo the Bucks beating the Eagles because they were falling apart, at what point do we say that the Lakers beat a falling apart Grizzlies team? A team that was coming apart at the seams, that hated Dylan Brooks. Ja Morant, we knew now, was not going to play for the next half of the season because of what he was doing off the court. Like, okay, you beat the Grizzlies, fine. And then you beat another old team. Like, again, like when they had to go up against a younger, more spry, a little more team, a little more hunger, they got smoked by the Nuggets. Like, and I know the Nuggets, they beat everybody in the end, but I'm just wondering if we look at that Lakers example, and it's a little bit fugazi because they ran against teams that were tailor-made for them to knock out.
Right, but I feel like LeBron, even at 39, he's going to give you 40 minutes. It's a different LeBron in the playoffs. You're going to get 100% effort because he's going to leave it all out there, and I think he has to hold a little back during the season. That's another argument. If you give me all the old teams versus all the young teams, I'll take these old teams in a second. And by the way, I did some research. Nick Sorensen and Daniel Sorensen not related. Also not related to Annika Sorenstam.
Oh, that one seemed obvious, but thanks for clearing it up.
Spelled differently. There's an O with 2 dots above it in Sorenstam's name.
Yeah.
Different. Not related.
Fresh off the NFL Combine, let's discuss the NBA draft right now and stick with LeBron because this draft may or may not include Bronny. Agent Rich Paul said over the weekend, Bronny's draft decision will be based on specific team interest, not draft position. They care more about finding him the right spot than being the highest pick possible. Paul adding that playing with LeBron is not the driving factor either, but it'd be super cool if that happened, quote, organically, which I read as we talked our way into a good team in like the 20s that would pick Bronny so then we could move LeBron to there.
At what point do they realize that they're embarrassing this young man?
They don't.
And it's sad because Bronny has accomplished so much, and he's a really talented young college player who I think could be a really good college player still, and maybe at some point could play in the NBA. But you know how embarrassing it is to tell, this is going to be his agent, Rich Paul's his agent, to tell the media that we don't care how high we get drafted. Like, it doesn't matter if we get drafted low or high to take Michelle
Wait,
Obama.
why is that embarrassing? It feels like more realistic. Like, they know they're not going to get drafted high.
It's embarrassing because every player that's ever entered the NBA draft wants to go as high as they want. Everybody has a dream to be the number one pick. No one has a dream to say, I hope I get drafted by the right team in the right situation where my dad may show up. Like, that's not anybody's dream that ever playing basketball.
But there's never been another Bronny James. I mean, there's not a lot of guys who have dads like that.
Yeah, but the problem is he's also, like, he's not good enough for this conversation. Like, it'd be one thing if he's barely in a first round.
He's scoring 5 points a game.
Hands down is a terrible first round.
Yes.
If there were good players available right now, he wouldn't be in this round. So this is all about his dad.
And that's the embarrassing.
I'm aware of that.
But that's the embarrassing part about it, because any other player who was involved in a situation with his stats wouldn't be talking about how they're going to finagle their way into the draft. It almost like they're trying to, like, I don't say scam their way into the draft.
Well, they are. That's what they're doing.
I mean, that's the only word I can think of. It's like,
it's not a scam because we all know what it is. They're not pulling the wool over anyone's eyes here. We all know that Bronny. Look at his stats. I just looked at it. Averaging 5 points a game, 2.4 assists, shooting 37% from the field, 27% from three. There's no NBA draft happening without LeBron. I don't think they're making any illusion about that. I think they're admitting that, aren't they?
And that's the embarrassing part. It's not like he's good and he's locked into round 1, and now they're trying to dictate where he goes.
Exactly.
They're overselling him, over talking him. He shouldn't be in the first round at all.
You know what they're doing? They're doing the multiverse of Maggie and Perloff that we did on Thursday. They're basically pretending like there isn't an NBA draft. Like they're saying, hey, forget about.
So don't draft him. Let him be an undrafted free agent.
No, but that's essentially what they're trying to do with a draft pick. They're saying, hey, forget about where you are. Hey, let's talk to us, and we'll sell you on why you should bring Bronny James in, and forget about where you are in the draft. Just take him. Like, and that's not how this draft has ever worked for most players.
No, but this is obviously an exception. I think that you can't blame their camp for what are they supposed to do in this situation? What would you do if you were Rich Paul?
Let him play college basketball like a normal college kid. Let him develop at USC or hit the transfer portal and go somewhere better. Andy Enfield, I don't really know what he's doing over there. He's just getting recruits and not really putting together a team. Maybe that wasn't the right fit anyway. Go to Ohio State or go to somewhere else, develop into a player, and then enter the draft when you're ready.
You don't want to see Bronny and LeBron play together. That doesn't mean anything to you as a basketball fan. I want to see it.
I will say this. It will be so cheap and will mean so less if Bronny James is not an NBA player and he's Thanasis Antetokounmpo on a team. I'm sorry, Thanasis, for throwing into the bus.
He is,
but he doesn't
Thanasis.
have to be. He's 18 years old.
He's not
going to
play 3 years. He's not going to play 3 years at USC, and LeBron's not going to be there at the end, and we're just going to miss the whole thing.
Then too bad.
He was always going to go into the NBA too early to try to make this happen, but now it's like sad. Like EJ said, it's because he just shouldn't be in the league, and to do this for the sake of doing it, as opposed to it actually happening because they both deserved it, that's the problem that I have with it.
The caveat too is obviously Bronny's been hurt. Had a heart incident.
Of course.
Which, I mean, I told EJ this the other day. I saw him in the McDonald's game. He was raining threes on everybody. That player is not there anymore. And then that makes perfect sense to me. He's a different player, and it's going to take him a while to get back. There's not going to be a college career than play with LeBron. It's not happening.
There's a dirty secret that's happening in college basketball and high school basketball that I think isn't necessarily known yet, but I think will be soon, is you have to take a great grain of salt what these kids do in high school and in high school all-star games. The caliber of high school basketball player right now is not good. It is falling off by tenfold, which is why you're seeing so many of these college coaches say, hey, forget about getting a McDonald All-American. I'd prefer to get transfers. Think about the impact freshmen this year. Who are they? Look at these teams that are at the top of the standings.
Yep.
Very few of them have an impact freshman that's going to be a one-and-done guy that's taken to the promised land. That's not what's working in college basketball.
Is there a G League and they're in Europe, right?
No, there are guys playing right now that also aren't doing that. There's a guy, Cody Williams, playing for Colorado. Nobody's picking Colorado to go to the Final Four. Like, you talk about Bronny James, USC has a guy. Isaiah Collier is supposed to be a top 10 pick, and USC has, like, single-digit wins. Like Bronny playing well in high school and playing well in McDonald All-American game is great. That doesn't, to me, mean you're a one-and-done guy or a guy that's going to make a difference on an NBA roster.
Of course not. Of course. But you can't. That was before the heart thing.
No, but I'm saying I think even before that.
I think you guys are not being realistic. There is going to be no Bronny, LeBron. And listen, nobody's saying that he earned his way there. That's the thing. It's not going to be hypocritical because I don't think anyone's going to say if he joins the Lakers is say an undrafted free agent. No, everyone knows. We all know. So it's not fooling anybody.
But if he was, if he had always been healthy, he was not going to walk in to the Pac-12 and average 20 a game and be an unquestioned top 10 pick.
But he might have scored more than 5 points a game.
Might, maybe 8.
Yeah. And seriously, like
I think he could have scored more. I mean, this has been very disappointing.
I mean, it's been disappointing, but I don't. And again, he deserves a lot of grace because what he went through, the hard thing, is extremely scary. But I'm being real with the player I watched in high school and the player I watched. I didn't see this game. There are not too many 6'2" shooting guards who come over and take over college basketball as a freshman. Like, it just doesn't happen that often. And it's not happening now. That doesn't happen anymore.
By the way, he plays really hard. That's one thing.
I love the way he plays.
He doesn't play like a spoiled kid at all. He goes out there and he hustles for everythting. He's surprisingly small to me. He's listed at 6'4". I do not see
There's
a 6'4"
no chance he's
player.
6'4".
Yeah,
no chance.
And where did LeBron's height go?
Went on to Bryce. Bryce is like 6'7".
Yeah, so maybe we all put our hope into Bryce.
The Phillies, love to mention them, and their ace,
another Bryce.
Zach Wheeler, reportedly in agreement on an extension, 3 years, $126 million, no opt-outs, according to Odyssey baseball insider Ryan Botcher. Wheeler would have hit the open market next winter.
Botcher's freaking news.
He was giving it to me in my ear, so I'm assuming it comes from him, not an actual media member. But
awesome.
I could
3
be wrong
years,
there.
126. That feels like a lot of money.
It's $42 million a year, but he's good.
He is really good. I mean,
and reliable. Always pitches.
Yeah, it feels like the Mets could use a guy
We
like
should
that.
really sell that. Pete. We should really sell how reliable Wheeler is, how durable. See if we can put some kind of jinx on that.
No.
Not rooting for an injury, but miss a month or two.
He'll win 30 games if we do that.
I know. It's going to backfire some way. And remember, we had Angela, the tarot card reader here, saying if you put out a voodoo, it comes back 3 times against you. So
That's what she says.
That means the Mets will lose 150 games if you say anything
They already
bad
are
about-
going to do that.
I know,
Do that
right?
without a voodoo.
Yeah.
I'm actually not saying this to make you guys bad, but what happened with Zach Wheeler and the Mets? I don't even remember.
Go ahead.
At the time, the Wilpons were still in charge. This was the last year, or the second to last year, one of the last years of Brody Van Wagenen, and I don't think at the time he was in their cards.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they kind of picked DeGrom
Yep.
and somebody else over Wheeler.
Yes.
Thinking they couldn't pay another high-end starter.
Should have talked to Odyssey insider Ryan Botcher.
Well,
before
back
making
then
a
when he was
decision like
11,
that.
he was not really, he didn't have enough swag yet.
I don't think he had the sources he had now.
That was 2019. 2019
You
winter
needed
meetings.
Malloy High School baseball inside. That's where we went to Botcher then. But now you get MLB stuff.
A lot of drama there.
If I wanted an update on where Cole Anthony was going, maybe Botcher could
Exactly.
have.
Like he left out of the blue.
Oh,
Nobody
see, there
knew
you go.
yet.
He was on it.
All right, Bogusch.
See you guys tomorrow.
Later.
If Pete allows it.
Okay.
Thanks, folks.
A lot of weird things on today's show. I like all of it, but there was a very somewhat disturbing report from our buddy Mike Florio about what's going to happen in the future of NFL. That's next. Maggie and Perloff.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back, Maggie and Perloff. EJ sitting in for Maggie today. Lots of headlines came out of the NFL Scouting Combine. One that I think a lot of people did not like. Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, said that what he was hearing in Indy is that 18 games is going to happen. An 18-game NFL regular season. They're at 17 now, and it's always felt like the league wanted to push to 18, not just because it's a round number. It's a lot more money. Mm-hmm. Now, if you gave me a vote right now as an owner, I would say no, keep it at 17, too much of a good thing. But 18 doesn't kill me. If you add a bye week, give guys a little extra rest, to me, make the football season longer. I get so depressed after it's over. What difference does it make if it goes to the end of February, if guys can build in some more rest? So I am not automatically opposed to 18 games.
No, this is when I actually saw this cross my purview, I was livid, because at what point, when's enough going to be enough for the NFL?
What are you talking about? It's clearly not enough now. The ratings are through the roof, and we all want more football.
So I got to see more quarterbacks, in the hospital, basically, because of all the injuries we've been having. Like, at what point are we going to take player safety actually seriously? Like we are playing 17 games, and these guys are barely making it through. We've only
your quarterback and the Jets couldn't make it through one quarter. What difference does 18 games
he had
make?
one particular issue. There were other guys who couldn't make it through the rest of the way. We talked about Trevor Lawrence a bunch last week. I mean, how banged up he was. He actually didn't miss any games, I don't think. Or maybe he missed just one.
Yeah.
Right, he missed just one. But at what point are we going to say, hey, the product will be better if we really take player safety seriously in terms of keeping these guys on the field? Playing more regular season games just means maybe less guys being healthy for the playoffs is a recipe for disaster. We talk about all the time in all these other sports, baseball, basketball, hockey. These sports need to cut down their games so we can get guys more healthy and more regular season games that are meaningful. The NFL wanting to go towards the NBA and Major League Baseball makes no sense to me.
What if I gave you an extra bye? Longer season, more rest.
It's
Players
still
would like
football. It doesn't matter. It's still football, because at the end of the day, every time you step on the field, there's the chance of something catastrophic happening. I pray to God it doesn't happen, but that's just the reality. So you can have another bye week all you want. It doesn't matter. It's like the saying Charles Barkley says, where he says, hey, when you get to a certain point in your career, you're not healthy, you're just rested. Like, NFL players aren't getting more healthy because they have an extra bye week. They're getting more rested. They won't feel quite as beat up, so to speak, when it comes to just the fatigue. But an injury is an injury. You could break your arm regardless of how many bye weeks you have. Like, enough. And, like, this season was the longest season I felt like of my lifetime. Like, it just took too long. And I know my team sucked.
I couldn't get enough.
No, it was beyond just my team sucking too, because it was watching all these other teams play backup quarterbacks and meander through mediocre seasons. It's like, no, let's get this over with and get to the playoffs already. That's what I kept waiting for. Like,
part of his style too. How many games, except for the 1 year where he tore his ACL in week 1, how many games did Tom Brady miss?
He barely misses any, if any.
None.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was 4 games he was spending for Deflategate. If guys learn to play like Tom Brady, then they're going to be fine. I just
guys learn to play at Tom Brady. There'll be like 32, 55,000 yard passes every year, and everybody winning Super Bowls. That'd be pretty nice.
Just
I think.
Get rid of the darn ball. Don't be like Justin Fields and take 400 sacks. I do think that the guys can survive, and there is more football. I understand everything you say is completely valid, and player safety is important.
Yeah.
But as a fan, I want more football. I would not mind. They add a bye so guys can recover from injuries, and they push the Super Bowl back to the end of February. What is wrong with that? Why does it have to be the first week in February?
If you want more football, I'll give you more football. Expand the playoffs then. You'll get more teams.
You're already at 14.
Go to the NBA. Go to 16. And we'll give you more
NBA
teams.
is kind of 20 with a play-in tournament.
Yeah, no, right. Give you more teams, more games. I'd prefer that than adding another week. Why do I want to watch another week of the New York Jets? Why do I want to watch another week of the Carolina Panthers?
You got to pick a new team.
Okay, no, I'm saying even they weren't my team. Like, at a certain point, like...
It's called betting and fantasy.
There's
You ever
some
heard
teams
of it?
that play the Jets. There's some teams that play the Panthers. Like, they got to watch that crap, too. I'm not putting that on anybody else. Like, enough with some of these teams. Like, I'm not trying to watch these scrub teams playing now a 17th game or 18th game. Like, it's getting out of hand.
Panthers had some good games at the end of the year. Remember the Green Bay 36-33? They are something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they were down by like 20 points and they made it interesting.
They actually fumbled the goal line. They could have knocked the Bucs out of the playoffs in Week 18.
I think the difference between you and I, though, is that for me, I need star players. I need good teams to make me come and watch them play. This violence alone and football alone, like, it doesn't do it for me. I can't watch two bad teams play against each other, which we're going to have more of if you add another game.
Well, you're going to need to start betting a lot more. All right, that'll do it. Thanks to Ryan Bodger, Pete Pilati, EJ Stewart. Great job filling in for Maggie.
Thank you, my guy.
Maggie Gray will be back tomorrow right here on the Maggie and Perloff Show.
You're in